This title is presented to you by Soundlibra.com. For more audiobooks like this, click the link in the description or visit our website at Soundlibra.com. Welcome to Own Your Story.
I'm so excited to be here with you, Alex. This topic is something I've been personally grappling with for years.
And that's exactly why we're starting this series. Our personal narratives, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and how the world works, shape everything about our lives.
Can you unpack that a bit? I've always thought of stories as something we share, not something that runs our lives.
Think about it this way. When you wake up in the morning, what's the first story that plays in your head? I'm not a morning person, or today is going to be productive. That little narrative sets the tone for your entire day.
Wow, that's so true. I definitely have that "I'm terrible at mornings" story on repeat. But how does that translate to bigger life outcomes?
Our personal narratives become self-fulfilling prophecies. If your story is, I'm not good at relationships, you'll subconsciously behave in ways that reinforce that narrative. You'll pick fights, avoid vulnerability, or settle for less than you deserve.
That makes so much sense. It's like we're writing our own endings before we even start the story.
Exactly. And the most fascinating part? We're often not even aware we're operating from these scripts until we stop to examine them.
So these narratives are like invisible scripts running our lives?
Precisely. They're the foundation beneath our conscious thoughts. Most of us never even look at the underlying logic. We just keep running the same programs over and over again.
That explains why people can read self-help materials, know what they should change, and still find themselves repeating the same patterns.
Absolutely. Knowing what to do isn't enough when you're running on autopilot. You need to become the author of your narrative, not just a character in it.
That's a powerful metaphor, the author versus the character. Can you elaborate on that distinction?
When you're a character in your story, you're reacting to events. When you're the author, you're creating the events and choosing how they shape your character. You move from being affected by life to affecting life.
So it's about shifting from passive to active in our own story?
Exactly. Think of your life as a book. Are you reading someone else's script about you? Or are you writing your own chapter by chapter?
I've definitely been reading someone else's script for most of my life. My childhood story became my adult story, even though my circumstances changed completely.
That's so common. We internalize narratives from our families, our cultures, our experiences, and rarely update them as we grow and change.
But how do we even know what our personal narrative is? It feels so automatic, like breathing.
That's the first challenge, becoming aware. It's like suddenly noticing the background music that's been playing your whole life. Once you hear it, you can choose whether to keep the same station or change it.
So becoming conscious of our narratives is the first step?
Absolutely. And that's what we'll be exploring throughout this series. How to uncover your current narrative, understand where it came from, and then consciously rewrite it in alignment with who you truly are and who you want to become.
I love this approach. It's not about pretending everything is perfect or focusing only on the positive. It's about acknowledging our stories while recognizing we have the power to edit them.
Precisely. Narratives aren't inherently good or bad. They're just stories. The question is, are your stories serving you or holding you back?
That's such a refreshing perspective. I've always thought of narrative work as either denying reality or dwelling on the past.
It's neither. It's about finding truth and agency. Some stories need to be acknowledged, the painful ones, the limiting ones, before you can rewrite them into something more empowering.
So it's a process of first recognizing, then understanding, then rewriting?
Yes, that's the journey we're embarking on together. Over the next 26 episodes, we'll explore each aspect of this process in depth.
I'm looking forward to that. For someone like me who feels stuck in certain patterns, this feels like both daunting and incredibly hopeful.
It is both, and that's perfectly okay. Change is uncomfortable, but living out of alignment with your true self is exhausting. The path to rewriting your narrative isn't always easy, but it's always worth it.
That's a powerful statement. What can listeners expect in the next episode?
Next time, we'll dive into unearthing your current story, practical exercises to help you identify the narratives running your life right now.
So we're starting with awareness and then going back to the source?
Exactly. Building that foundation of understanding before we move into the more active work of reframing and rewriting. Each episode builds on the last, creating a comprehensive approach to narrative transformation.
I'm already feeling excited about this journey. It's not about quick fixes, but about deep, meaningful change.
And that's the beauty of working with your personal narrative. When you rewrite your story, you're not just changing a few thoughts, you're transforming your entire experience of life.
What a powerful promise for a podcast series. I can't wait to explore this alongside our listeners.
Neither can I. Remember, your personal narrative isn't fixed. It's living, breathing, and most importantly, yours to shape. The question is, what story do you want to tell?
Next episode, Unearthing Your Current Story.
Welcome back to Own Your Story. Last time, we explored the incredible power of our personal narratives, understanding how the stories we tell ourselves shape our reality. Today, we're diving into episode 2, Unearthing Your Current Story. This is where the real work begins, looking honestly at the narrative you're currently living.
I'm so excited for this part, Alex. It feels like a crucial first step. We can't change a story if we don't know what it is, right? So, where do we start? How do we even begin to unearth this story?
Exactly, Lisa. You've hit the nail on the head. The very first step is awareness. We need to become observers of our own thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions. Think of it like being a detective, but the mystery you're solving is your own life. We're looking for the recurring themes, the patterns, the underlying messages that have become so ingrained we don't even notice them anymore.
That makes sense. So, it's not about judging what we find, but just noticing it. Like, oh, there's that thought again.
Precisely. Judgment is the enemy of discovery here. Our goal is simply to observe without criticism. Imagine you're watching a movie of your life. You're not the actor trying to change the script yet. You're the director watching playback, taking notes. What are the recurring lines of dialogue in your head? What are the situations you find yourself in again and again? These are clues to your current story.
Okay, I can picture that. So, how do we actually do this noticing? Are there specific techniques you recommend?
Absolutely. One of the most powerful tools is simply paying attention to your inner dialogue. What are you saying to yourself throughout the day? When you encounter a challenge, what's your immediate internal reaction? Do you think, I can't do this, or this is going to be a disaster? Or perhaps, okay, how can I figure this out? These internal whispers are the building blocks of your narrative.
That's fascinating. It's like our brains are constantly narrating our experiences. I know for myself, I often catch myself thinking negative self-talk, especially when I make a mistake. Something like, you always mess this up, or why are you so clumsy?
And that's a perfect example, Lisa. By noticing that you always mess this up thought, you've already taken the first step. You've identified a key sentence in your current story. Now, the next layer is to understand what that thought might be implying about you. Does it suggest you believe you're inherently incompetent? That failure is a permanent part of your identity?
Wow, that's a big leap from just a simple thought. It really does suggest a deeply held belief about myself. So, we're looking for these thoughts and then questioning what they mean about our fundamental beliefs about ourselves and the world?
Exactly. We're not just collecting random thoughts. We're looking for the underlying beliefs that fuel these thoughts. These beliefs are often unconscious. They're the assumptions we've made about how life works, about our capabilities, about our worthiness, about what's possible for us. For instance, that I always mess this up thought might stem from a deeper belief that I am not good enough.
I am not good enough. That's a heavy one. And I can see how that belief would lead to all sorts of self-sabotaging behaviors or missed opportunities because the underlying message is don't even try, you'll fail anyway.
Precisely. And this is where the unearthing really gets interesting. We need to become mindful of not just our thoughts, but also our emotional responses. How do you feel when these recurring thoughts arise? Are you anxious, frustrated, sad, angry? Our emotions are often indicators of our deeply held beliefs and the stories we're running. If a particular situation triggers strong negative emotions, it's a sign that a core story is being activated.
So, it's a multi-pronged approach. Inner dialogue, identifying recurring thoughts, uncovering the underlying beliefs, and paying attention to our emotional reactions. It sounds like a lot to keep track of.
It can feel like that at first, but remember, we're not aiming for perfection here. We're aiming for awareness. One practical exercise to help with this is to set aside a few minutes each day, perhaps at the end of the day, to do a quick narrative audit. Just take a few moments to check in with yourself. Jot down any recurring thoughts or feelings that surfaced. It doesn't have to be a formal journal entry at this stage, just casual notes.
A narrative audit. I like that. It sounds less intimidating than digging through your past trauma or something.
Absolutely. And think of it as creating a snapshot of your current narrative. Over time, as you continue this practice, you'll start to see clear themes emerge. You might notice that certain phrases pop up frequently, like I'm not smart enough, I'm not creative, I'm not deserving of happiness, or the world is a dangerous place. These are all powerful statements within your current story.
And how do we differentiate between just a fleeting thought and something that's part of our deeper narrative?
That's an excellent question. The key is repetition and the emotional charge. A fleeting thought might be something like, did I leave the stove on? Which you quickly dismiss. A narrative-driven thought is one that keeps coming back, often with a wave of emotion attached. It feels more fundamental, more like a part of your identity. If a thought is accompanied by a strong feeling, and it's a pattern, it's likely a significant part of your current story. Another way to identify them is to ask yourself, if this thought is true, what does that say about me? The answer to that question often reveals a core belief.
So, if I keep thinking I'm terrible at public speaking, and that thought makes me feel anxious and also makes me avoid opportunities to speak in front of groups, that's a narrative element. And if I ask myself, if it's true I'm terrible at public speaking, what does that say about me? I might uncover a belief that I'm not confident or I'm not capable of connecting with people.
You got it, Lisa. That's exactly the process. And it's not just about identifying negative narratives. Sometimes our current story might be overly positive in a way that's actually limiting. For example, someone might have a story of, I'm always the one who takes care of everyone else, which sounds selfless, but can lead to burnout and neglecting their own needs.
Oh, that's a really good point. It's not always about finding bad things. It's about finding the story that's running the show and seeing if it's serving us. So, after we've begun to notice these thoughts, beliefs, and emotions, what's the next step? Do we just sit with them?
We sit with them, observe them, and begin to categorize them. Think of it as starting to build a profile of your current narrative. You might start to notice patterns related to your relationships, your career, your self-worth, your health, or your general outlook on life. Are there consistent themes of scarcity, fear of being overlooked, or perhaps of constant striving and never feeling good enough?
It sounds like this process can be quite illuminating, but potentially a bit uncomfortable as we confront aspects of ourselves we might not like.
It absolutely can be, and that's perfectly normal. It takes courage to look honestly at our inner world. But remember the goal. It's not to judge, it's to understand. And understanding is the prerequisite for change. By unearthing your current story, you're gaining the power to assess whether it's a story that serves you or one that's holding you back. You're moving from being a passive character in a story that's happening to you to becoming an active observer who can eventually choose to rewrite it.
So, the key takeaway for this episode is to become a curious observer of our own inner dialogue, emotions, and recurring thoughts, as these are the building blocks of our current narrative. And to do this without judgment.
Exactly, Lisa. We are gathering the raw material. We're becoming intimately familiar with the story we're currently living. We're identifying those recurring lines, those core beliefs, and the emotional undercurrents. This is your baseline. And from this baseline, we can then begin the exciting work of crafting a new, more empowering story.
Thank you, Alex. This has been a really insightful first step. I feel like I have a clearer understanding of how to begin looking inward.
And that's precisely what we aimed for. So, to recap, for this week, your task is to simply listen. Listen to your inner voice, notice recurring thoughts, and be aware of your emotions without judgment. You are the detective of your own narrative. Next episode, we'll delve into the roots of these narratives, exploring how our childhood experiences might have shaped the stories we tell ourselves today. Welcome back to Own Your Story. Last time, we explored how to unearth the stories you're currently telling yourself. Today, we're going to dig a little deeper. We're talking about the roots of your narrative, specifically those powerful childhood patterns that shape who you believe you are.
It's true, Alex. Our childhood experiences feel so far away sometimes, but the echoes of them can really influence our present day thoughts and actions. I'm curious to hear how those early years lay the groundwork for the stories we carry.
Absolutely. Think about it, Lisa. When we're very young, we're like sponges. We absorb information about ourselves and the world around us from the adults and experiences that are most significant in our lives. These early interactions are crucial. They become the building blocks of our initial understanding of who we are, what we're capable of, and what the world expects of us.
So, it's not necessarily what happens to us, but how we interpret those early events and messages.
Precisely. And often, this interpretation happens unconsciously. We might not even realize we've adopted a certain belief until much later in life. Imagine a child who is told repeatedly, perhaps through tone of voice or parents' actions rather than direct words, that they are too sensitive or too much. That child might internalize that message and grow up believing they need to suppress their emotions or shrink themselves to be accepted.
That makes so much sense. I remember a friend who was always praised for being very tidy and organized as a child. Now, as an adult, she feels immense pressure to keep everything perfect and she gets really anxious if things are out of place, even in her own home. It's like that early praise became a rule she had to live by.
That's a perfect example, and it highlights how even seemingly positive feedback can create a rigid narrative if it's not balanced. The key here is to approach these childhood patterns with compassion. We're not blaming anyone, ourselves or our caregivers. We're simply seeking to understand the origins of our present-day limitations.
Compassion is such an important word here. It can be easy to fall into self-criticism when we realize how certain early experiences might be holding us back.
Indeed. So, let's explore some common areas where these childhood patterns take root. One is the messages we receive about our capabilities. If a child is consistently praised for academic success, they might develop a narrative that their worth is tied to their achievements. Conversely, if a child struggles academically or in other areas, they might internalize messages of inadequacy.
And this can lead to a fear of trying new things later in life, right? Because if they aren't immediately good at something, it reinforces that old story of not being capable.
Exactly. Another significant area is the messages we receive about our emotional expression. As we touched on, children learn how to express or suppress emotions based on the reactions they get. If a child's sadness or anger is met with dismissal or punishment, they may learn that those feelings are unacceptable, leading to a narrative of emotional inexpressiveness or difficulty managing strong emotions.
Or they might learn to internalize those feelings, which can manifest in physical ways later on.
That's very true. We also absorb messages about our social roles. Were you encouraged to be the peacemaker, the responsible one, the quiet observer? These roles, assigned early on, can become deeply entrenched narratives that shape our interactions and our sense of self.
It's like we're given a script, and we stick to it even when we've outgrown the part.
Precisely. And then there are the messages, spoken or unspoken, about belonging and acceptance. Did you feel consistently seen and valued? Or did you often feel like you had to earn love or approval? These experiences can create powerful narratives around our inherent worthiness.
This is making me think about the importance of our caregivers or significant adults in those early years. Their beliefs, their own stories can profoundly influence ours.
Absolutely. It's not about our parents or guardians being perfect. That's impossible. It's about recognizing the messages they conveyed, intentionally or unintentionally. Did they model healthy relationships? Did they demonstrate resilience in the face of challenges? Did they express their own emotions constructively? Children learn by watching.
So, looking back, what are some practical ways listeners can start to identify these roots in their own lives without feeling overwhelmed?
Great question. The primary tool is gentle self-reflection. Ask yourself, when do I feel most insecure? What situations make me doubt myself? Or the recurring criticisms I hear in my own head? Observe these patterns. See if you can trace them back to an early experience or a recurring message you received as a child. Try to recall the emotions you felt then. Were you scared? Ashamed? Confused? Understanding those early feelings is key to understanding the narrative that formed.
And it's about creating some distance, isn't it? Seeing those childhood experiences not as definitive truths about who we are now, but as events that shaped an early interpretation.
Exactly. It's like finding the original blueprint. You can see how the house was designed, but that doesn't mean you have to live in it as is. You have the power to renovate. Another technique is to consider the opposite of your current limiting belief. If your ingrained belief is, I'm not good enough, what would it feel like to believe, even for a moment, I am inherently good enough, regardless of my accomplishments? Where does that alternative thought come from? Does it feel foreign because it contradicts a long-held childhood narrative?
That's a powerful exercise. It really highlights how deeply ingrained some of these stories are.
It does. And remember, this process isn't about uncovering trauma to dwell in it. It's about understanding the genesis of your current story so you can consciously choose to rewrite it. Think of it like a detective investigating a mystery, but the mystery is your own internal world. You're looking for clues from the past to understand the present.
So, to recap, we're understanding that our childhood environment and the messages we received from significant adults deeply influence the stories we tell ourselves about our capabilities, our emotions, our social roles, and our worthiness. And the key is to approach this exploration with compassion, looking for patterns, and identifying the originating messages without blame.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. By understanding the roots of our narrative, we gain the power to loosen their hold. We can see that these stories, formed in childhood, are not necessarily the absolute truth about who we are today. They're simply the stories we were told or the interpretations we made at a time when we had limited information and perspective.
It's empowering to realize that we have agency over these narratives now.
Absolutely. And in our next episode, we'll continue this theme by looking at how these childhood patterns often manifest as specific limiting beliefs that we carry into adulthood. We'll start to identify those concrete thoughts that hold us back.
That sounds like a crucial next step. For our listeners, I encourage you to gently reflect on your own childhood experiences this week. What messages might you have absorbed? And remember to approach it with that sense of compassion we discussed.
Excellent advice. So, join us next time as we delve into identifying your limiting beliefs and how to start challenging them. Until then, keep owning your story. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we explored the roots of your narrative and how childhood patterns shape our stories. Now let's tackle something that keeps many people stuck, limiting beliefs.
I'm excited to dive deeper into this, Alex. But before we go further, could you help our listeners understand exactly what we mean by limiting beliefs? It's a term I've heard, but I'm not sure I fully grasp.
Great. Welcome back. Last time we covered identifying your limiting beliefs. Now let's tackle narrative therapy principles.
I'm excited about this. How does narrative therapy connect to our personal narratives?
Narrative therapy helps us see ourselves as authors of our stories, not just characters. The core principle is that we're not our problems. We have problems. This distinction is fundamental.
So, it's about separating our identity from our challenges?
Absolutely. Imagine your problems as temporary visitors. This concept is called externalizing. When we externalize, we say, I'm experiencing anxiety instead of I am anxious. This creates space.
So, instead of I'm a failure, we might say the story of failure is impacting my life?
Exactly. This externalizing is just the start. Narrative therapy assumes we have multiple stories. Some are dominant, like inadequacy, but alternative stories always exist.
Like how one bad experience doesn't define your entire life story.
Precisely. Think of a library. You might have a prominent book titled My Mistakes, but there are other volumes, My Triumphs, My Growth. Narrative therapy helps us give prominence to the stories we want to live by.
I love that analogy. How do we start identifying these different stories?
That's where unique outcomes come in. These are moments when the dominant story doesn't hold true. If your story is, I'm always nervous, a unique outcome is that time you share an idea. These are cracks in the old story.
So, we're looking for exceptions to the rule?
Exactly. These exceptions prove the narrative isn't absolute. If the story of, I'm always nervous, were true, you'd never have moments of confidence. Those moments are evidence of your authentic self.
This is giving me hope. So, by finding unique outcomes, we can build a new narrative?
You've got it. But there's also reauthoring. As we find unique outcomes, we rewrite our story. Instead of I'm always nervous, we create a new narrative like I'm someone who sometimes experiences nervousness but also has moments of clarity and confidence.
So, we're not just negating the old story, but incorporating it into a broader narrative?
Perfectly said. The old story isn't false, it's just incomplete. The new narrative acknowledges challenges while highlighting strengths and possibilities. It's like upgrading from black and white to color.
What about the people in our lives? How do they influence our narratives?
That's where thickening the new story comes in. As we find unique outcomes, we explore them. What made it possible? What are you thinking? How did others respond? This builds evidence for the new narrative.
So, we're collecting evidence to support our preferred story?
Exactly. And this evidence helps us stand firm against the old narrative. It's like building a fortress brick by brick.
I'm starting to see how this connects to our earlier work on limiting beliefs. The narrative therapy framework gives us tools to rewrite those beliefs.
That's the connection. Remember how limiting beliefs often come from our interpretation of events? Narrative therapy gives us tools to question those interpretations and create new ones.
So the process would be identify the limiting belief, externalize it, find unique outcomes, and then build a new narrative?
You've summarized it beautifully. There's also deconstruction. This involves examining how dominant stories are constructed, what language is used, whose voices are included, what's left out. By understanding how stories are built, we can intentionally construct new ones.
So it's not just about changing what we say, but understanding the architecture of our narratives?
Precisely. Think of it like understanding a house's blueprint. Once you see how it's constructed, you can make intentional changes. You can reinforce weak foundations or add new rooms.
This is really coming together. Narrative therapy principles give us both the tools and the framework to rewrite our personal narratives.
Absolutely. These principles, externalizing unique outcomes, reauthoring, thickening the new story, and deconstruction, form our foundation. They're practical tools that can transform how you see yourself.
This feels like the turning point where we move from understanding our current stories to actively rewriting them.
That's exactly right. We spent the first few episodes understanding our limiting narratives. Now we have the tools to begin changing them. Next episode, we'll explore reframing failure.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back. Last time we explored narrative therapy principles. Now, let's tackle failure.
Failure. It's a word that can make us cringe, right? We're taught to avoid it, to see it as a sign of inadequacy. When our stories get tangled with failure, it can feel like the whole narrative is ruined.
Exactly. If you're telling yourself, I'm not good enough, and then you experience a setback, your brain might confirm that story. It becomes another brick in that limiting narrative.
So, the goal isn't to pretend failure doesn't happen. It's about changing how we interpret it, how we weave it into our ongoing story.
Precisely. This is where reframing comes in. Reframing failure means looking at it from a different angle, seeing it not as a definitive end, but as a pivot point. Instead of asking, why did I fail? We can ask, what can I learn from this? Or what opportunity does this setback present?
That's a powerful shift. I remember in episode 4, we talked about identifying our limiting beliefs. A belief like, I always mess things up, is a prime candidate for reframing when failure strikes.
Absolutely. Reframing failure is critical for rewriting those limiting beliefs. When we approach failure with a learning mindset, we gather evidence that contradicts those negative beliefs. We build a new story.
So, let's break down what reframing failure looks like in practice. What are some concrete ways we can do this?
First, acknowledge the experience without judgment. It's okay to feel disappointed, but then consciously shift your focus. Ask, what skills did I use, even if the outcome wasn't desired? What did I discover about myself or the situation?
So, it's about separating the event from your identity. Failure is an event. It doesn't define who you are.
That's a fantastic way to put it. Failure is a data point, not a destiny. From that data point, we can extract valuable lessons. Think of it like scientific research. Scientists don't get discouraged when an experiment doesn't yield predicted results. They analyze why, adjust their hypothesis, and try again. They see the failed experiment as crucial information.
That analogy really helps. We can be our own scientists, examining our experiments in life. What other reframing techniques are there?
Another powerful technique is to look for unintended positive consequences. Sometimes, a failure in one area can open doors in another. You might not get that job, but perhaps that frees up your time to pursue a passion project that brings you more fulfillment. Or a project not going as planned might lead to discovering a more efficient way of doing things later.
That requires a bit of faith, doesn't it? Trusting that something good can come from a difficult situation, even when you can't see it yet.
It does. It requires cultivating optimism and a belief in your resilience. Remember episode 12, when we discussed strengths and values. Harnessing those can be incredibly helpful. If your value is growth, then any experience, even a setback, can be framed as an opportunity for growth.
That connection is brilliant. So, if I see a setback as a failure, my story reinforces I'm not good enough. But if I see it as a chance to apply my value of growth, my story becomes I am learning and improving. It's the same event, but a completely different narrative interpretation.
Exactly. This leads us to another key part of reframing, looking for the generative potential of the experience. This means identifying what this failure can spark or generate in terms of future actions, insights, or creative endeavors.
Generative potential. I like that. It sounds so much more hopeful than just failure. So it's about what this setback enables us to do or become, rather than what it stops us from doing.
Precisely. Let's say you try to start a business and it didn't succeed. Instead of a story that says, I failed at business, you could reframe it to, my first business venture taught me invaluable lessons about market analysis, team management, and customer engagement. This experience has equipped me with the knowledge to approach my next entrepreneurial idea with greater wisdom and a much clearer strategy.
Wow. That story sounds completely different. It's not about the end of one thing, but the foundation for something else. It even highlights the skills learned, which is what we touched upon earlier.
And what's crucial here is that this reframing isn't about self-deception. It's about a more accurate and empowering interpretation of reality. Often, in our initial failure story, we focus on a very narrow outcome. When we reframe, we broaden our perspective to include all the other learning, growth, and potential that was also present.
So we're not dismissing the negative feelings, but we're not letting them be the only story. We're adding new chapters, new interpretations.
Yes, and this is where journaling, which we'll explore more in episode 7, becomes incredibly helpful. When you journal about a difficult experience, you can actively practice these reframing questions. Write down what happened, what you felt, and then dedicate some space to asking, what did I learn? What new skills did I develop? What opportunities might arise from this? What's a more empowering way to tell this story?
That's a great prompt for journal entries. Writing it out forces you to engage with it more deeply and intentionally.
Absolutely. And another reframing technique is to consider the influence of the event. How has this experience shaped your understanding, your perspective, your decisions moving forward? Perhaps a past struggle has made you more empathetic to others facing similar challenges. That's a powerful positive outcome, even if it stemmed from a perceived failure.
So, we're looking for the ripple effects, the positive changes that might have been a direct or indirect result of the difficult experience.
Exactly. And remember the idea of identifying your unique values from episode 12? When you face a setback, you can ask, how did this experience test or affirm my values? For example, if your value is perseverance, then facing a challenge and not giving up, even if the outcome wasn't ideal, is a testament to your perseverance. The narrative then becomes about your strength in sticking with it.
It's like collecting evidence to build a new, richer story. We're no longer just the person who failed at X. We're the person who learned Y from X, discovered Z about herself, developed skill A, and grew more resilient because of it.
That's a perfect summary. We are collecting the evidence that supports a more complete and empowering version of our story. It's about acknowledging the difficulty, yes, but then actively seeking out the lessons, the growth, the resilience it fostered. Think of yourself as an editor of your own life story. You have the power to highlight different aspects, to frame events in a way that serves your growth.
This episode feels incredibly liberating. It's empowering to know that we can actively change the meaning we ascribe to challenging experiences.
And that's the core of Own Your Story. We are not passive recipients of our narrative. We are its active authors. So, next time you face a setback, a moment that feels like failure, pause. Take a breath and ask yourself, how can I reframe this? What is the generative potential here? What lessons can I glean? How can I weave this into a story of strength and learning?
This is such a crucial step in moving from being defined by our past struggles to being empowered by our journey. We've learned that reframing failure isn't about ignoring it, but about interpreting it as a valuable source of learning, a pivot point for growth, and an opportunity to discover our resilience. We can see failure not as an end, but as a powerful catalyst for a richer, more empowering personal narrative by asking different questions and seeking out its generative potential.
Well said. Next time, we'll be diving into hands-on techniques for transforming your narrative with journaling. We'll explore your narrative log and how to use it for deep personal transformation.
I'm really looking forward to that.
So am I. Until then, keep owning your story. Welcome back. Last time, we explored reframing failure. Now, let's focus on journaling for rewriting your personal narratives.
Journaling. It sounds simple, but its power for understanding ourselves and shaping our futures is immense.
Absolutely. Think of your narrative log as your personal laboratory for self-discovery. It's a dedicated space to audit your current story, identify recurring themes that hold you back, and nurture the shifts you're making. It's where transformation begins.
So it's more than just a diary. It's actively engaging with our thoughts and feelings about events through the lens of our narrative.
Exactly. A diary focuses on events. Your narrative log is about the meaning you assign to those events and how those meanings contribute to your overall story. We're looking for patterns, the underlying assumptions, the beliefs that shape our present.
Because if we don't examine those whispers, they can become the loudest voices, dictating our actions without us realizing it.
Precisely. Your narrative log can be a physical notebook or a digital document. The key is consistency. Aim to write something every day or at least a few times a week. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for presence.
Aim for presence. That's reassuring. It's showing up for yourself on the page, not crafting elegant prose.
That's it. Start by reflecting on your day. How did you feel? What thoughts came up? What interactions did you have? Ask yourself, what story was playing out here? Was it one of strength or one of struggle?
So, if I had a difficult conversation, instead of just writing colleague X was difficult, I might write, I felt anxious during my conversation with colleague X. My immediate thought was that I wasn't good enough, which echoes the I'm not capable story I've been telling myself.
That's a perfect example, Lisa. You've moved from a surface level observation to identifying the underlying narrative and its emotional impact. Another useful prompt is to ask, what belief is activated for me in this situation? This helps you pinpoint the specific story that's running.
So I might write, during that difficult conversation, the belief I must be perfect to be accepted was activated. This explains why I felt so much anxiety.
Exactly. You're not just describing an event, you are excavating the meaning-making process. Another powerful technique is to track your recurring thoughts. Are certain phrases or ideas popping up repeatedly? Like, I'm always messing things up, or no one truly understands me.
Those do sound familiar. It's like finding the common threads woven through different experiences.
They are. And by identifying these common threads, you can begin to see them not as objective truths, but as the plot points of story you've been unconsciously writing. Your narrative log becomes the place where you can give these threads a name. Perhaps you call, I'm always messing things up, the screw-up story, or no one understands me, the lone wolf narrative.
Giving them names gives them a sort of concrete reality, but also makes them feel more manageable, doesn't it? Like you can address them directly.
Precisely. And as you write, pay attention to the emotions tied to these stories. Are they feelings of shame, fear, anger, or sadness? Just acknowledging them, without judgment, is a crucial step. The log is a judgment-free zone for your inner world.
It's like being a detective in your own mind, gathering clues about how your story got written the way it did.
A fantastic analogy. And as you become more aware of these patterns, you can also start noting moments of disruption, times when you didn't fall into the old pattern. Maybe you felt a flash of frustration, but then consciously chose a different response.
Ah, so it's not just about identifying the old story, but also spotting moments where a new one is trying to emerge.
Exactly. These are your seeds of transformation. Note these moments down. What was different? What thought helped you pivot? What feeling allowed you to choose differently? This is where you gather evidence for your new narrative.
So, for my difficult conversation example, I could add, despite feeling the not capable story surface, I remembered Alex's advice about focusing on my intention. I told myself, my intention is to collaborate, and that simple shift helped me re-engage constructively.
Beautiful. You're actively documenting your journey from a passive participant to an active author. This practice helps you see your strengths and the tools you have at your disposal for rewriting. The narrative log is your script writing companion, your personal editor.
It makes sense. If we want to change the story we're living, we need to understand the script we're currently following. The log provides that blueprint.
Indeed. And remember, this isn't about having all the answers immediately. It's about consistent practice and honest self-inquiry. Over time, your narrative log will become a rich source of insight, revealing not just the stories holding you back, but also the emerging narrative of your own resilience and agency.
It sounds like a journey of gradual but profound shifts. The log isn't just a record, it's an active participant in the change process.
That's the essence of it. It's your personal transformation journal, your narrative toolkit, and your proof of progress all rolled into one. It's where you observe, analyze, and ultimately begin to rewrite.
So, to recap, our narrative log is a dedicated space to 1. Observe and record our daily thoughts, feelings, and interactions. 2. Identify recurring themes and the underlying beliefs that form our current narrative. And 3. Capture moments where we disrupt old patterns and choose new responses.
You summed it up perfectly, Lisa. This consistent practice of journaling will build a powerful awareness of your personal narrative and lay the groundwork for crafting a more empowering one.
It feels less like work and more like a powerful tool for self-liberation.
That's the spirit. Keep showing up on the page, and the transformation will unfold.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to Own Your Story. Today, we're deconstructing old stories.
That sounds intriguing, Alex. So, this is a way to loosen the grip of negative beliefs we've identified?
Exactly, Lisa. Those limiting stories have taken up a lot of mental space. Our goal with the shrinking exercise is to mentally reduce their size and influence, making it easier to replace them.
So, how do we actually shrink these stories?
It starts with getting clear on a specific limiting story. For instance, someone might have the story, "I'm not creative and I'll never be able to come up with new ideas."
Got it. So, you pick one specific, negative narrative. What's the first step in shrinking it?
The first step is to bring that story into sharp focus. You need to acknowledge it as a story you've been telling yourself. So, for our example, you would say, "This is the story I've been telling about my creativity." You're externalizing it.
So, you're not saying, I am not creative, but this narrative of not being creative is something I've engaged with. That's a subtle but important shift.
Precisely. By naming it and acknowledging it as a narrative, you've already begun to create some distance. The next step is to visualize this story. Imagine it as a physical object. What size is it? What color? What texture? Does it have a sound? Don't overthink this. Let your imagination guide you.
So, if my story is I'm not creative, perhaps I might imagine it as a large, gray, heavy boulder sitting in the middle of my chest. It feels cold and makes a dull thudding sound.
That's a perfect example, Lisa. You've just given it form. Now, here's where the shrinking really happens. We're going to use our intention and focus to reduce its size. Imagine gently pushing on this boulder. Or perhaps you have a magical button that shrinks things. The method isn't as important as the intention behind it.
So, I would visualize that boulder getting smaller, perhaps I'm imagining it shrinking down to the size of a pebble.
Exactly. And as it shrinks, Pay attention to how that feels. Does the thudding sound get quieter? Does the coldness lessen? As the boulder shrinks, you might notice a sense of relief or lightness. You're consciously diminishing its power. You might repeat to yourself, this story is getting smaller. Its influence is fading.
This feels very active. It's not just thinking about the story, but actively engaging with it to make it less powerful.
That's exactly right, Lisa. It's an active deconstruction. We're not trying to force it away, but rather to gently, intentionally, and skillfully reduce its presence and its impact. It's like turning down the volume on a conversation that's been dominating your mental space.
And what do we do once it's shrunk, say, to the size of a grain of sand?
Once it's shrunk to a tiny size, you can then decide what to do with it. You could visualize yourself gently picking up that tiny pebble or grain of sand and placing it in a small box. You've contained it. Or you might visualize yourself blowing it away with a gentle gust of wind, watching it disappear into the distance.
So, the goal is to shrink it and then either contain it or release it, so it's no longer a dominant force.
Yes, and it's important to remember that this is a practice. You might not make a story disappear entirely in one session, but you can significantly reduce its grip. When you revisit that limiting belief later, you might find it doesn't feel as heavy or as true. You can then reinforce the shrinking process.
This makes sense. We've deconstructed old narratives by visualizing them as objects and then actively reducing their size through focused intention. This exercise is a tangible way to apply what we've learned about narrative therapy.
It truly is. To recap the shrinking exercise, first, identify a specific limiting story. Second, visualize it as a physical object with details like size, color, and sound. Third, actively use your intention to shrink that object, noticing the sensations associated with its reduction. Finally, decide whether to contain or release the shrunken story.
So, we've taken the abstract idea of a limiting belief and made it something we can physically interact with in our minds and then intentionally diminish. It's about regaining control of the narrative.
Precisely. This exercise is a powerful way to dismantle the old scaffolding that has been supporting unwanted narratives. By shrinking these old stories, we're creating space. And what do we do with that space? That's exactly what we'll explore in our next episode, where we'll begin crafting your new, empowering narrative.
Fantastic. So, we've learned how to deconstruct and diminish old stories. Next time, we begin the exciting process of building new ones.
That's right. So, until then, keep practicing the shrinking exercise and start noticing the shift in your own narrative landscape. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Own Your Story. Last time, we bravely deconstructed some old, limiting narratives. Now, we're moving on to episode 9, where we'll focus on crafting your new narrative, identifying its essential building blocks.
That's right, Alex. Last episode felt like clearing out an old, cluttered attic. Now, it's time to pick out the beautiful, sturdy materials to build something new. So, Alex, where do we start when we're ready to build a new narrative? What are these building blocks?
The building blocks are the core elements that will form the foundation and structure of your desired new story. Think of them as the essential ingredients for who you want to become. The first, and perhaps most crucial, building block is envisioning your desired identity. We need to paint a clear picture of the person you want to be.
That makes sense. We were looking at the past last time. Now we're looking to the future, but it's a future we actively create. So, when you say desired identity, how do we get specific about it?
It's about asking yourself powerful questions. Instead of who am I, we ask who do I want to be? Picture yourself a year from now, 5 years from now, living this new, empowered story. What qualities does that person embody? Are they confident, resilient, creative, compassionate? Are they brave in pursuing their goals? List these traits. These are the first building blocks.
So, it's like creating a character profile for the best version of ourselves. I can see how listing those qualities would be incredibly helpful. It gives us something concrete to aim for instead of a vague feeling of wanting to be better.
Exactly. And these attributes aren't just random. They should align with your deepest values. So, the second building block is identifying your core values. What principles are most important to you? Is it integrity, kindness, growth, adventure? When your desired identity is built upon your core values, it feels more authentic and sustainable.
So it's not just about seeming confident, but about being confident because it aligns with my value of personal growth, for example. That connection is so important. Anchoring ideas to values makes them feel much more grounded.
Precisely. Values are your internal compass. They guide your decisions and actions. When your new narrative is aligned with your values, it feels right. It resonates with your true self. So, after envisioning your desired identity and identifying your core values, the third building block is to define the core beliefs that would support this new identity and these values.
Core beliefs. That's a term we've touched on before, often in the context of limiting beliefs. So now we're flipping that and creating empowering beliefs.
You've got it. Limiting beliefs hold us back because we tell ourselves they're true. Empowering beliefs propel us forward because we decide they are true for us. If your desired identity includes being courageous, an empowering belief might be, I am capable of facing challenges and learning from them. Or if a value is creativity, an empowering belief could be, my unique ideas have value and deserve to be expressed.
This is like building with Legos, isn't it? You don't just have a pile of bricks. You select the specific shapes and colors you need for the structure you're imagining. Desired identity, core values, and empowering beliefs. Those are our key brick types.
That's a perfect analogy, Lisa. And just like not all Legos fit together perfectly, sometimes the initial beliefs we come up with might need a little tweaking. That's okay. The process is iterative. So, to recap these first three essential building blocks: 1. Envision your desired identity. Who do you want to be? 2. Identify your core values. What principles guide you? 3. Define empowering beliefs that support this identity and these values.
And I think it's important for our listeners to know that this isn't a one-time task. We're laying the foundation. We can always add more blocks later. But these three really form the bedrock of a new narrative, right?
Absolutely. Now let's think about what actions and behaviors would be consistent with this new identity, these values, and these empowering beliefs. This is our fourth building block. If you envision yourself as a confident communicator, what behaviors would that look like? Perhaps it's speaking up in meetings, initiating conversations, or asking for what you need.
So, it's about translating these internal concepts into observable actions. If I'm crafting a narrative of someone who prioritizes their well-being, the behaviors might include setting boundaries around work, making time for exercise, or prioritizing sleep.
Precisely. These actions become evidence for your new story. Every time you act in alignment with your new narrative, you're reinforcing it. Think of it as collecting proof that your new story is real and happening. These consistent actions are a powerful building block because they create momentum and reinforce your new identity.
It's like when a musician practices their scales daily, it strengthens their ability to play complex pieces. Practicing these new behaviors, even in small ways, strengthens our capacity to live our new story.
Exactly. So, we have envisioned identity, core values, empowering beliefs, and consistent actions. What else do we need to build a strong, resilient narrative? We need to consider the emotional landscape of this new story. This is our fifth building block, cultivating the emotions associated with your desired identity.
Emotions. That's fascinating. So, if my new identity is one of calm resilience, I need to actively cultivate feelings of peace and steadiness?
Yes, It's not just about thinking differently, but also about feeling differently. How does confidence feel in your body? How does inner peace feel? You can practice mindfulness, gratitude, or even visualization techniques to help evoke and amplify these desired emotions. The more you allow yourself to feel the emotions of your new story, the more real and ingrained it becomes.
It's like the saying, act as if. If you want to feel confident, start embodying the feelings and actions of a confident person. The emotions then become a strong reinforcement for the new narrative, almost like a reward system.
Yes, it's a powerful feedback loop. So, our 5 key building blocks for crafting your new narrative are: 1. Envision your desired identity. 2. Identify your core values. 3. Define empowering beliefs. 4. Commit to consistent actions that align with these. And 5. Cultivate the emotions associated with your new story.
That feels like a really solid framework, Alex. It moves from the abstract, the vision and beliefs, to the tangible, the actions, and then back to the internal, but in a positive way, with emotions. It's a complete picture.
It is. And one more, a sixth building block that is vital for long-term success: establishing positive sources of reinforcement. This could be a supportive friend, a mentor, a community, or even specific affirmations and reminders that you regularly revisit. External validation and internal reminders help solidify the new narrative.
External support is so critical. It's hard to build a whole new world all by yourself. Having people, or even practices that cheer you on and reflect your new story back to you makes a huge difference.
It truly does. So, let's summarize these 6 building blocks for crafting your new narrative. First, vividly envision your desired identity. Second, clearly identify your core values. Third, formulate empowering beliefs that support your vision. Fourth, commit to consistent actions that align with your new narrative. Fifth, actively cultivate the emotions associated with your desired identity. And sixth, establish positive sources of reinforcement to support your journey.
This is such powerful work, Alex. It's about being intentional and creative with how we shape our inner world, which then reshapes our outer experience. It's not just about reacting to life, but about actively authoring it.
Exactly, Lisa. We are the storytellers of our lives. And by consciously choosing our narrative building blocks, we are writing a story that empowers us, uplifts us, and guides us toward the person we truly want to be. Remember, these aren't just abstract concepts. They're the tangible components you can start working with today.
So, for our listeners, the task after this episode is to really dig into these building blocks. Take some time to write them down, explore them, and see how they feel. What kind of house are you going to build with these amazing materials?
That's the spirit. And in our next episode, we'll explore how to make your new narrative even more powerful by focusing on the incredible strength of empowering self-talk. Next episode, the power of empowering self-talk. Welcome back to Own Your Story. Last time we covered crafting your new narrative, focusing on building blocks.
And that process of building something new, Alex, often comes up against the ingrained habits of our old stories, right? Especially the way we talk to ourselves. It's like you're trying to build a beautiful castle, but there's this constant nagging voice in your head reminding you of the old, broken shack.
Exactly, Lisa. And that's what we're focusing on today: the incredible, often underestimated power of empowering self-talk. If our personal narrative is the story we tell ourselves about who we are, then self-talk is the inner voice that narrates that story moment by moment. It's the script we're constantly rewriting, or sometimes, unfortunately, the one that keeps playing the same old, unhelpful scenes.
So, it's not just about consciously deciding on a new story, but actively living it through our internal conversations?
Precisely. Think about it. We've spent years, maybe decades, with a certain inner dialogue. It's become automatic. If your old narrative was about not being good enough, your self-talk probably constantly reinforces that. It might say things like, you messed up again, or you're not smart enough for this, or why bother trying?
Oh, I've definitely heard those voices. They can be incredibly persuasive, even when you know they're not true. It's like a persistent echo from the past.
And that echo is a powerful force. It shapes our emotions, our beliefs, and ultimately, our actions. If your inner voice is constantly telling you you're a failure, you're going to act like one. You'll shy away from challenges, hesitate to take risks, and generally give less than your best. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But the flip side is also true.
Which is the magic of empowering self-talk.
Exactly. Empowering self-talk is about consciously choosing words and phrases that support your desired narrative. It's about becoming the supportive, encouraging voice in your own head. Instead of, you messed up again, it might be, okay, that didn't go as planned. What did I learn from this so I could do better next time? Or instead of, you're not smart enough, it becomes, I'm capable of learning and growing, and I can figure this out.
That's a huge shift. It sounds like practicing a new habit. It probably feels a bit awkward at first, like you're not being authentic, or even lying to yourself.
That's a very common feeling, Lisa. It's like learning to speak a new language. At first, it's clunky, you're thinking hard about every word. But with practice, it becomes more natural. The key is consistency and intention. You have to commit to noticing your negative self-talk and then deliberately replacing it with something more constructive.
So, how do we actually do that? Are there specific techniques you recommend?
Absolutely. One of the most effective techniques is to start by simply catching your negative thoughts. Become an observer of your own inner dialogue. When you notice a critical thought, pause. Just acknowledge it without judgment. You can even label it like, there's a not good enough thought again. This creates a little distance.
So, you're not denying the thought, but you're recognizing it as just a thought, not necessarily the absolute truth.
Precisely. You're breaking the unconscious identification with that thought. Once you've caught it, the next step is to challenge it. Ask yourself, is this thought actually true? What evidence do I have that supports this thought? And importantly, what evidence do I have that contradicts this thought? You'll often find that the critical thoughts are based on assumptions, past experiences that no longer apply, or just a harsh inner critic.
I can see how that would highlight the exaggeration or inaccuracy of a lot of negative self-talk.
It really does. And then, the crucial step, reframe it. Replace the negative thought with an empowering one. This is where we intentionally craft our new narrative. If you caught yourself thinking, I'll never be able to do this, you could reframe it to, this is challenging, but I can break it down into smaller steps and work through it. Or I've handled difficult things before, and I can learn to handle this too.
And these new statements, they should align with the positive story we're trying to build, right? They're like the positive affirmations we hear about, but more actively engaged.
Yes, exactly. They're not just empty platitudes. They are conscious assertions that support your growth and your desired identity. Think of it as tending to your internal garden. The old weeds of negative self-talk will always try to creep back in, but with consistent, empowering self-talk, you're planting stronger, more resilient flowers of positivity and capability.
So, it's an ongoing process of weeding and planting. What about when we're facing a really big challenge? Those are often the times when the old, critical voices get loudest.
That's a great point. During challenging times, it's even more important to lean into empowering self-talk. You can use what we call mantras or affirmations that are specifically designed to build resilience. These are short, powerful statements that you can repeat to yourself. Things like, I am strong, I can handle this is temporary, or I am learning and evolving.
I like the idea of having a go-to set of phrases ready for those tough moments. It's like having a mental toolkit.
It absolutely is. And don't underestimate the power of simply saying to yourself, I am doing my best, especially when you feel you're falling short. That simple acknowledgement can be incredibly freeing and help you move past self-criticism. Remember our episode on reframing failure? Empowering self-talk is the engine that drives that reframing. It's how we prevent a setback from becoming proof of our inadequacy.
So, to recap for our listeners, the power of empowering self-talk lies in its ability to actively counter old, limiting beliefs and reinforce the new, desired narrative we're building. It's a practice that involves, first, catching our negative thoughts without judgment. Second, challenging those thoughts to see if they're truly accurate. And third, reframing them with positive, constructive, and empowering statements that align with the story we want to live.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. And I want to add one more layer. It's vital to be patient with yourself. This isn't about switching to a positive mindset overnight. It's about making a conscious, consistent effort to shift your inner dialogue. Over time, those new, empowering phrases will start to feel more natural, more like your voice. They become the new soundtrack to your life story, drowning out the old, limiting melodies.
It's about actively authoring your internal experience, isn't it? Not just passively listening to whatever commentary pops into your head.
Exactly. You are the narrator of your deepest story. And by choosing your words carefully, by being intentional with your self-talk, you gain immense power to shape your reality. This inner dialogue is a powerful tool for reinforcing the changes you're making, for solidifying your new identity, and for truly stepping into the narrative you've been working so hard to create.
So, to wrap up this episode on empowering self-talk, remember that your inner voice matters. It's a constant companion that can either hold you back or propel you forward. By consciously choosing encouraging and supportive words for yourself, you can dismantle old limitations and build the confidence and belief needed to live the story you truly desire. Start noticing your self-talk today. Begin the practice of catching, challenging, and reframing, and watch how your inner narrative transforms.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered empowering self-talk. Today, we're editing our identity, especially moving beyond the victim mentality.
That's a critical shift. So many of us get stuck seeing ourselves as passive recipients of life's challenges, rather than active shapers of our experiences.
Exactly. This is the victim mentality. It's a mindset where we feel powerless, focusing on what happened to us, not what we can do about it.
So, it's the story we tell ourselves about why things are happening?
Precisely. When you're in a victim mentality, your story focuses on being wronged or unfairly treated. You might say, "It's not my fault," or "This always happens to me."
It's easy to fall into that pattern. It can feel safer, deflecting responsibility, but it keeps us stuck.
Absolutely. The victim identity is passive. You're defined by what happens to you. But realizing we are the playwrights, directors, and lead actors of our lives is key.
So, the first step is recognizing when we're in that victim mode. How can listeners identify this passive storytelling?
Pay attention to your internal dialogue. Are you blaming external factors for your situation? Do you feel resigned or mutter about unfairness? A reluctance to take responsibility is another sign.
And what happens when we stay in that victim narrative?
It stifles growth. If you believe you have no control, you won't try to exert any. You miss opportunities, don't learn from mistakes, and your self-worth erodes. Think of it like a plant that believes it can't grow because the conditions aren't perfect. It stops trying, even if a little sunlight or water could make a difference.
That's a powerful analogy. The plant gives up on itself. So, how do we transition from being the victim to becoming the author?
This is where intentional editing comes in. The shift is from "what happened to me" to "what can I do now?" It's about reclaiming agency. A victim experiences an event, An author writes the meaning in the next chapter.
Taking ownership.
Taking ownership. It's about making a conscious decision to stop being a passive passenger and start being the driver. Focus on the solution, not the problem.
So, if I think, my boss is always micromanaging me, what's the authorial response?
The authorial response. Okay, my boss micromanages. That creates a challenge. How can I navigate this? Can I have a conversation? Can I proactively share my progress? What can I do to influence this dynamic? It moves from a complaint to a problem-solving approach.
Yes, it's an internal shift from helplessness to resourcefulness. It's focusing on your internal power to respond.
Exactly. We're not just someone who gets micromanaged. We're someone who skillfully navigates challenging workplace dynamics. The language changes, and as the language changes, the identity begins to shift.
It feels like a continuous process.
Absolutely. It's a practice. There will be times you slip back. The key is to notice it and gently, consciously choose to reframe it. Ask yourself, what is the more empowering interpretation? What action can I take?
This reminds me of self-talk. The external validation we might crave can be replaced by the internal validation of knowing we are capable.
Spot on, Lisa. You're not seeking permission to be okay. You're granting yourself that from within. You become the architect of your own validation.
So, rather than waiting for someone else to tell us we're good enough or that we handled a situation well, we acknowledge it ourselves.
Precisely. It's a powerful form of self-respect. It's acknowledging the effort, the learning, the resilience, even when the outcome wasn't perfect. This internal validation is a cornerstone of moving beyond the victim narrative. It builds confidence that's not dependent on external circumstances.
And this active role means we're always learning, always growing, even from setbacks.
Correct. A victim sees a setback as confirmation of their powerlessness. An author sees it as data. What did I learn here? How will this inform my next move? It's a fundamental difference in perspective.
It's about taking the lessons from your past experiences and using them to consciously construct your future.
Exactly. This editing of our identity, shedding the victim mantle, is such a crucial step in owning our story. We are not just the characters in our life's drama. We are the authors of the entire play.
It's a profound reorientation from passive experience to active creation. And it sounds like the more we practice this, the more natural it becomes.
It does. It's like any skill. The more you practice, the more your brain builds those new pathways. You become more attuned to the victim narrative when it pops up and more adept at shifting into the authorial voice.
So, to recap, recognizing the victim mentality involves noticing blame, resignation, and a lack of responsibility. The key transition is moving from what happened to me to what can I do now? And the power of moving to this authorial stance comes from internal validation and viewing setbacks as learning opportunities.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. Embracing this authorship is about living your life with intention and power, actively writing each new chapter. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Own Your Story. Today, we're harnessing your strengths and values in your personal narrative.
It's easy to focus on weaknesses, so shifting to our inherent strengths and what we value sounds like a truly positive and productive approach.
Exactly, Lisa. We all possess unique strengths and core values. By identifying and leveraging them, we create a more authentic, robust, and enjoyable narrative. This is about grounding your story in what's already good and true within you.
So, it's about weaving these qualities into the fabric of our new story, making it more believable and sustainable, like building a house with a solid foundation.
Precisely. Let's start with identifying strengths. What comes easily to you, what you do without thinking, are often your strengths. Sometimes others see them more clearly than we do. What do people often ask your advice about? What compliments do you brush off?
I'm a good listener and organized. People tell me I make complex things simple. I never thought of those as strengths, just part of who I am.
Those are perfect strengths: clarity, communication, simplifying complexity. We can also think of strengths in categories: character strengths like kindness, practical skills like coding, and natural talents like empathy.
Character strengths, practical skills, natural talents. That helps organize it. So, how do we harness them in our narrative then?
We intentionally incorporate them. If perseverance is a strength, your narrative might say, when faced with a challenge, I bring my unwavering perseverance to find a solution, rather than focusing on the difficulty.
So, instead of I struggled with this project, it becomes even though the project was complex, my perseverance allowed me to see it through successfully. It shifts the focus to your active response.
Exactly. If organizational skills is a strength, you'd say, I'm planning my next career move, leveraging my organizational skills to map out achievable steps. This acknowledges a capability you possess.
That makes the goal feel much more attainable because you're already telling yourself you have the tools.
Now let's talk about values. Values are your deeply held principles, your guiding beliefs about what's important. They are the why behind your actions. A narrative aligned with your values will feel deeply authentic and fulfilling.
So, how do we uncover our core values?
Think about what makes you feel angry or frustrated. Often, our values are being violated. If you see injustice and feel upset, fairness might be a core value. Positive feelings are clues too. When do you feel most alive? If helping others brings you joy, compassion, or service could be a value.
So, negative reactions and positive engagement can both point to values.
Correct. We can also look at people we admire. What qualities do they embody that resonate with you? Those often reflect your own values. What would you want to be remembered for?
Okay, so imagine I've identified empathy and problem solving as strengths and connection and growth as values. How do I weave those into my narrative?
Your narrative isn't just about overcoming a problem. It's about how you, with your strengths and guided by your values, navigate life. So, instead of I got through a difficult situation, it becomes fueled by my value of connection. I reached out to my support network. Using my problem-solving strength, I tackled the challenges, and my empathy allowed me to understand different perspectives, leading to a resolution that fostered even deeper connections.
Wow, that's much more meaningful. It explains not just what happened, but how and why in a way that feels true to you.
Exactly. And when your narrative is built this way, it's incredibly resilient. When setbacks occur, your story doesn't crumble because it's rooted in your strengths and values. You can remind yourself, this is tough, but I have the strength of perseverance, and my value of growth means I'll learn from this.
It's like having an internal compass and a robust toolkit built right into your identity.
You've got it. And when you consistently act from your strengths and values, you start to embody them. This isn't just about telling a different story, it's about living a different story. Your actions reinforce the narrative you're building.
This practice also helps set boundaries. If a situation conflicts with your core values, you'll be more empowered to recognize it and make choices that honor yourself.
So, by identifying and integrating our strengths and values, we build an authentic, resilient, and self-aware narrative. It's about aligning our external actions and our internal narrative with our deepest sense of self.
It's about becoming the conscious author of a story that truly reflects who you are and who you aspire to be, built on the bedrock of your own capabilities. You're rediscovering and amplifying them.
This is how we move from just wishing for a different life to actively creating one, grounded in our truest selves. Take time this week to reflect on personal strengths and core values. Write them down. Then, reframe a recent situation or an upcoming goal using those strengths and values.
That's a great actionable step. To recap, identifying our unique strengths, character, skills, and talents, and our core values is key. By consciously weaving these into our self-description and plans, we build an authentic, resilient, and powerful narrative that guides our actions and reinforces our sense of self.
This sets us up perfectly for our next episode, where we'll explore how our relationships influence our narrative and the vital importance of setting healthy boundaries. Next episode, Relationships and Your Story, Influences and Boundaries. Welcome back to Own Your Story. Last time we explored harnessing your strengths and values.
It was about identifying those internal assets and weaving them into your evolving identity to rewrite limiting beliefs.
Today, we're expanding that focus to our relationships. Our personal narratives interact with the stories of the people around us. This episode is Relationships and Your Story, Influences and Boundaries.
It's so important. Our relationships can either bolster our new stories or unintentionally drag us back into old ones.
Think of your personal narrative as a garden you're cultivating. Supportive relationships act like a gentle trellis, helping your new narrative grow strong and upright.
So, people who genuinely listen, offer positive feedback, and don't force us into old patterns are like sunshine and rain for a narrative garden.
Yes, they reinforce your chosen narratives, showing your new story is valid. If you're becoming more assertive, a friend who supports your boundaries is a powerful narrative ally.
But what about when relationships reinforce limiting beliefs? Like someone saying, you're just being too sensitive when you set a boundary, or that's just how you are when you're changing an old pattern.
Those are the unsupportive influences. Some relationships can become anchors to your past narratives. This might be because others are more comfortable with the story they know, or they benefit from you staying in your old role.
It's like they're used to a specific plant and get concerned when you try to grow something different.
Precisely. When someone consistently dismisses or pulls you back into an old narrative, it can make you doubt your growth. If you're moving from self-doubt to confidence, and someone constantly points out flaws, it's like they're replanting limiting beliefs.
This is where boundaries become so critical. We need to actively protect the narrative we're building.
Setting boundaries isn't about rejecting people, but managing their influence on your narrative. It creates a healthy space for your chosen story to flourish. Think of boundaries like a fence around your garden. It deters pests without stopping the birds.
So, what does setting a boundary look like in a relationship concerning our personal narratives?
It can mean limiting exposure to triggering conversations or interactions. If talking about a certain past event always pulls you into a victim narrative, you might politely steer the conversation elsewhere or in the interaction.
So, it's about recognizing triggers and making conscious choices to disengage or redirect.
Exactly. Another boundary is emotional. Recognize when feedback isn't helpful to your narrative growth and choose not to internalize it. If a friend offers advice based on their old beliefs, acknowledge it without letting it derail you. You might say, I appreciate that, but I'm working on a different path.
That sounds like a powerful way to reclaim agency, even with external opinions.
It is. Sometimes boundaries involve direct conversations about your needs. You might say to a partner, I'm working on seeing myself as more capable, and it would be helpful if you could focus on my efforts and successes rather than past struggles.
That requires courage to be vulnerable and articulate your needs.
It does. But remember empowering self-talk? This is a prime opportunity to practice it. Your new narrative is about self-respect and self-advocacy. Setting boundaries is a tangible expression of that, saying, this is the story I'm writing and I need support.
So, to recap, our relationships can either encourage our evolving narratives or reinforce old beliefs. Positive relationships are allies, while unsupportive interactions can hinder us.
And importantly, we've explored setting boundaries. These manage influences on your narrative. Boundaries can involve limiting exposure to triggers, not internalizing unhelpful feedback, and having direct conversations about your growth needs. This creates a protected space for your chosen stories to flourish.
It's a continuous process of tending our narrative garden and being mindful of the external environment.
Indeed. Next episode, we'll tackle Chapter 14, Challenges and Setbacks in Story Rewriting. Rewiring our narratives isn't always smooth.
I'm ready for that. It's good to know challenges are expected.
Exactly. So join us next time as we explore navigating those inevitable bumps in the road on your narrative journey. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Own Your Story. Last time, we explored how relationships impact our personal narratives and the importance of boundaries. Today, let's dive into challenges and setbacks when rewriting your personal story.
It's true, Alex. It's rarely a smooth, straight line. Life happens, old patterns resurface, and self-doubt can creep in. What are some of the most common hurdles people face?
One of the biggest challenges is the pull of habit in our thinking. Remember unearthing your current story and identifying limiting beliefs. Those old narratives are often deeply ingrained, becoming our default settings. Our brains naturally try to revert to the familiar path when we attempt new thoughts or actions.
So, it's like trying to reroute a river. The water wants to flow in its old channel. You have to build new banks and actively guide it. What does that look like in practice?
It means being self-aware and patient. When you fall back into an old pattern, like a negative self-talk loop, acknowledge it without judgment. Instead of thinking, I failed, try, okay, my old story tried to show up, but I noticed it. That's progress. This mindful awareness, a key part of journaling, signals that your new story is gaining strength.
That reframing is so important. It shifts the focus from failure to learning. What are other common setbacks?
Doubt, for one. As you assert your new narrative, you might feel imposter syndrome, doubting if you're worthy of this new story. This is where embracing your strengths and values, as we discussed, becomes critical. Remind yourself of your inherent worth and the qualities supporting your desired narrative. Picture yourself as a skilled author deliberately choosing different words and plot points for your life story.
That author analogy is powerful, and it brings up consistency. It's easy to be enthusiastic at first, but what about when progress feels slow or non-existent for weeks? How do you maintain momentum?
This is where consistent, small actions come into play. Think about the building blocks of your new narrative. You don't have to overhaul everything at once. Dedicate a few minutes each day to reinforcing your new story through journaling, affirming values, or appreciating small wins.
So, it's consistent, small actions, not waiting for a grand change. And celebrating those small wins sounds crucial for momentum, especially when facing challenges.
Absolutely. And that leads to another significant challenge, external influences. Remember our discussion on relationships? Sometimes people in our lives, even with good intentions, might inadvertently reinforce old stories or discourage new ones. They might be accustomed to the old you or simply not understand your commitment to change.
That can be disheartening. You're working hard, and then someone says something that pulls you back into the old narrative. How do you navigate that without getting discouraged?
This is where healthy boundaries are your best friend. It's about communicating your new narrative and commitment gently but firmly. This might involve explaining your journey. Other times, it might mean limiting exposure to environments that consistently challenge your new story. It's about protecting the space for your new narrative to grow and being clear that you are the primary author of your evolution.
So, protect your narrative space, communicate your intentions, and be prepared to reinforce your new story even when faced with pushback. It sounds like resilience is key.
Resilience is definitely the word. It's a muscle built through practice. When setbacks happen, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this experience strengthen my new narrative? This is the essence of reframing failure. Instead of seeing a setback as proof your new story is impossible, see it as an opportunity to gather data, refine your approach, and demonstrate your growing resilience.
It's like a detective gathering clues. Even a dead end provides information about what doesn't work. So, to recap challenges and strategies, we have the pull of old habits, self-doubt, maintaining momentum, and external influences.
That's right. Strategies include mindful awareness of old patterns, reframing setbacks as learning, anchoring yourself in strengths and values, consistent small actions, setting boundaries, and cultivating resilience by learning from every experience. The journey of rewriting your story is dynamic. There will be frustration, but each moment is an opportunity to become a more skilled narrator of your own life.
It makes sense that there will be bumps. It's reassuring to know there are practical ways to navigate them. So, when challenges arise, the key is not to be discouraged, but to acknowledge, learn, and keep writing.
Exactly. It's about continuing to turn the pages, even when the plot gets complicated. We're building a rich, complex, and empowering life story, and that takes courage and perseverance. Next episode, we'll focus on celebrating the wins and reinforcing the changes you've made.
That sounds like a wonderful way to build on what we've learned today. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Thanks for joining us on Own Your Story. Welcome back to Own Your Story. Episode 15 is here.
Alex, this episode feels so vital. We've spent a lot of time deconstructing old narratives and building new ones. It's easy to get caught up in the process and forget to celebrate the progress we've made.
That's spot on, Lisa. Think about mastering any new skill, like learning to play an instrument or new language. It's not just about one big breakthrough. It's a series of smaller steps and many little triumphs. Our personal stories are the same. Acknowledging those moments where we actually live our new narrative is how we make it truly stick.
So, celebrating wins is more than just a feel-good activity. It's a practical method to make our new story permanent.
Exactly. It actively reinforces the new thought patterns we're building. When we achieve something that aligns with our new narrative, perhaps speaking up when we would have stayed silent, or choosing a calm response over an old, reactive one, our brain recognizes this as success. Celebrating this success amplifies that positive feeling, making us more likely to repeat that behavior. It's like giving our brain a high five for doing a great job.
I can totally see how that works. It's positive reinforcement for our transformation. But what kind of wins should we be looking for? Big, life-changing events, or are the small moments just as significant?
The small moments are absolutely critical. They tend to happen more often, making them incredibly powerful. While big wins are important milestones, it's the daily, even moment to moment, choices that truly shape a new identity. Did you manage to pause before reacting negatively? That's a win. Did you replace a limiting belief with a more empowering one? That's a win. Did you take even a tiny step toward a goal, despite feeling hesitant? That's a win.
So, it's about noticing the subtle internal shifts, not just waiting for external achievements like a promotion or a perfect relationship. It's about valuing the internal work.
Precisely. These small wins are the foundation. If we only focused on the very end results, we'd often feel discouraged. By celebrating these micro victories, we create a consistent sense of progress, which fuels our motivation and builds resilience.
How do we actually go about celebrating these wins? Our default is often to just move on to the next task.
That's where intentionality comes in. It can be as simple as taking a moment to acknowledge yourself. I did that, and I'm proud. You can even make a dedicated note of it in your narrative journal. Remember that practice? Creating a section for my wins this week or moments I embody my new story can be incredibly effective.
Writing them down makes them more tangible, more real.
Absolutely. It's about giving these experiences the recognition they deserve. Another way to celebrate is to share your win with someone you trust, someone who supports your growth. Their validation can be a powerful reinforcement. Or consider a small, personal reward.
A reward? Like treating yourself?
Yes, but it's important that the reward aligns with your new narrative. If your new story is about self-care, the reward could be a relaxing bath, an extra chapter of a book, or a delicious, healthy meal. If your new story is about creativity, perhaps it's dedicating time to a beloved hobby. If it's about personal development, maybe it's investing in a new book or a course. The reward reinforces the positive behavior, making it more appealing to repeat.
That's a brilliant point, Alex. The reward should reflect the values you're now living by in your new narrative. It's not about indulging in something that undermines your progress, but about honoring it.
Exactly. It's about self-acknowledgement and self-compassion. We are often our own toughest critics. We can be quick to judge ourselves when we falter, but we often downplay our successes. Consciously celebrating our wins is a powerful act of self-love that shifts this pattern.
It also builds momentum, doesn't it? Recognizing progress creates a positive feedback loop. It makes future challenges feel less overwhelming because we have a history of success to draw upon.
That's a perfect description, Lisa. Momentum is key. Imagine a snowball rolling downhill. It starts small, but as it rolls, it picks up more snow, growing larger and faster. Each small win is like that initial push or a few extra snowflakes. They build on each other, creating a force that carries you forward.
So, when we inevitably face setbacks, having that collection of celebrated wins to look back on can act as an anchor. It reminds us, I've navigated difficulties before, and I can do it again.
Exactly. It's your personal evidence of strength. When doubt arises, you can revisit your narrative journal and see all the times you've demonstrated resilience and commitment to your new story. This is where reinforcement becomes truly powerful. It's not just about the immediate good feeling, but about establishing a long-term belief in your capacity for change.
And if we don't acknowledge these wins, what are we risking? Are we more likely to fall back into old habits?
Yes, the risk is significant. Without conscious reinforcement, the old, deeply ingrained habits and thought patterns can exert a stronger influence. It's like neglecting a plant you're trying to nurture. The old weeds might just take over again. By celebrating and reinforcing, you're actively tending to the new growth. You're showing your brain and your spirit what's working, what's valuable, and what's worth continuing.
It sounds like we need to be quite deliberate about creating these moments of recognition. We can even schedule them in, right?
Absolutely. If it feels unnatural at first, schedule it. Set a reminder on your phone. Reflect on a win today. Or dedicate 10 minutes at the end of each day or week specifically for this purpose. Treat it with the same importance as any other crucial task. It is crucial for the success of your narrative transformation.
So, to summarize for our listeners, celebrating wins, from the smallest internal shifts to larger achievements, isn't just a nice bonus, but a necessary practice for making your new personal narrative stick. It reinforces positive behavior, builds momentum, and serves as an anchor when facing challenges. The key is to be intentional, acknowledge your wins, perhaps record them, and even offer yourself a small, fitting reward.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. By consciously celebrating your progress, you're not just acknowledging the journey. You're actively ensuring your new story becomes your lived reality. You are the author, and you get to acknowledge and reward the progress of your protagonist, which is you.
It makes so much sense. It's about being our own biggest supporter.
Exactly. And on that empowered note, we'll wrap up episode 15. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Own Your Story. We've celebrated wins and reinforced positive changes.
It feels like we've unearthed old stories, examined them, and started building new ones. Now comes the challenging, exciting part, right?
Exactly, Lisa. Today, for episode 16, we're discussing living your chosen story, integration into daily life. We've done the work mentally and in our journals. Now, it's about truly embodying that new narrative, making it real in every aspect of our lives.
So, it's not just about thinking differently, but acting differently?
Precisely. It's about making intentional choices, day in and day out, that align with the person you've decided to be. Think of it like learning a new skill. You can read about it, but until you start practicing it consistently, it doesn't truly become a part of you. Living your chosen story is the consistent practice of your new narrative.
That makes sense. It's like knowing how to swim versus actually swimming laps. The integration part is about getting in the water.
That's a fantastic analogy. So, how we practically get in the water? The first step is making intentional choices that reflect your new narrative. Every decision is an opportunity to reinforce who you are now. For example, if your old story was about not being good enough and you've rewritten that to I am capable and resourceful, then when a new project lands on your desk, your thought process shifts. Instead of I can't do this, it becomes how can I approach this resourcefully?
So, when faced with a challenge, instead of defaulting to the old story of inadequacy, you actively choose to respond with a new narrative of capability.
Exactly. You're not just hoping the new narrative is true. You're acting as if it's true, which in turn proves it to be true. And this applies to everything. If your chosen story is one of connection and open communication, then when a difficult conversation arises, you choose to approach it with openness rather than retreating.
This sounds like it requires a lot of mindfulness, though. Constantly being aware of which narrative is bubbling up and then consciously choosing the new one.
It does, especially at first. It's like training a muscle. Initially, you're very aware of each movement, but with practice, it becomes more fluid and natural. This is the application of all the empowering self-talk and deconstructing old stories we've discussed. When you catch an old thought pattern, you identify it, acknowledge it, and then pivot to your chosen narrative.
So, it's about developing that internal guidance system.
Precisely. And this integration also means actively seeking out experiences that align with your new story. If you have rewritten your narrative to be that of an adventurous person, then perhaps you start by planning a day trip to a new place or trying a new hobby that feels a little outside your comfort zone, but aligns with that adventurous identity. These experiences become evidence for your new story.
So you're not just thinking it, you're living it and collecting proof that it's real.
Yes, and this leads to another crucial aspect of integration, how you handle situations and setbacks. Life will always throw curveballs. Your old narrative might have interpreted setbacks as proof of your limitations. Your new narrative will frame them differently.
How so?
If your new narrative is about resilience and growth, a setback isn't a dead end. It's a detour, a learning opportunity. Remember when we discussed reframing failure? This is where that skill truly shines. Instead of crumbling, you ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How does this experience make me stronger or wiser in my chosen story?
So, even the difficult moments become fuel for the new narrative, rather than evidence against it.
Absolutely. It's about transforming your relationship with challenges. And this integration extends to your relationships with others. How you show up in the world as this new person. If your new narrative is about setting healthy boundaries, then you practice asserting those boundaries with kindness and firmness. If it's about being a supportive friend, you actively practice being present and encouraging to those around you.
It's about the consistent, day-to-day actions and interactions that build and reinforce the new identity. It's like painting a mural. You don't just do one big stroke. It's a series of smaller applications of paint that, over time, create the complete picture.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it's important to remember that this is a continuous process. We don't just integrate our new story once and we're done. Narrative stewardship is an ongoing journey of tending to your story, ensuring it continues to serve you and evolve as you do.
So, to recap for our listeners, integrating your chosen story into daily life involves making intentional choices aligned with your new narrative, actively seeking experiences that support this new identity, reframing setbacks as opportunities for growth within your chosen story, and consciously embodying your new narrative in your interactions with others.
You've summarized that perfectly, Lisa. It's about showing up as the author of your life, making deliberate choices that write the chapters you want to read. It's about living the story, not just telling it.
This truly brings it all together. It's so empowering to think that every single day, every decision, we have the opportunity to reinforce the narrative we've chosen for ourselves. We're not passive characters. We are the active creators of our lives' unfolding stories.
And that's the essence of living your chosen story. It's the active, conscious, and consistent integration of your new narrative into the fabric of your everyday existence. It's where the inner work meets outer reality.
It's a powerful concept, Alex. It truly transforms the idea of personal growth from an abstract goal into a tangible, daily practice.
Indeed. And we'll continue exploring how to deepen this practice. Next time, we'll be looking into advanced journaling techniques for even deeper insights into your narrative. Next episode, advanced journaling techniques for deeper insights. Welcome back to Own Your Story. Today, we're exploring advanced journaling techniques for deeper insights.
That's right, Alex. Last time, we talked about making that new story a lived reality. But to really solidify those changes and uncover even more about ourselves, our journaling needs to evolve. It's not just about writing things down anymore. It's about using journaling as a powerful tool for transformation.
Exactly, Lisa. Think of episode 7, where we introduced the basic concept of a narrative log, your personal journal for tracking your story. We learned about jotting down thoughts, feelings, and small observations. Today, we're taking those foundational skills and building on them with techniques that can unlock even more profound self-understanding.
So, we're moving beyond just documenting what's happening to actively exploring and shaping our inner world. What's the first advanced technique you'd like to share, Alex?
Let's start with something incredibly powerful, gratitude journaling. This isn't just about feeling thankful. It's about actively seeking out and recording the good, which directly counters those negative, limiting beliefs we've been working to dismantle.
That makes so much sense. If our old story was filled with perceived lack and problems, actively focusing on gratitude would be like shining a spotlight on the opposite of that. It provides tangible evidence that good things are happening, or at least that we have things to appreciate.
Precisely. So how do we do it? First, dedicate a section of your journal, or even a separate one, for gratitude. Every day, or at least several times a week, write down 3 to 5 specific things you are grateful for. And here's the key. Don't just list them. Briefly explain why you are grateful.
Oh, that's a crucial distinction. Instead of just, I'm grateful for my coffee, it would be something like, I'm grateful for the warm mug of coffee this morning because it helped me feel cozy and ready to start the day.
You've got it. That simple addition of the why creates a deeper emotional connection and reinforces the positive experience. Over time, these entries build a powerful counter-narrative to any feelings of scarcity or misfortune. It's about training your brain to look for the good, which is a fundamental part of embracing your empowered story. Remember our discussion on positive self-talk? Gratitude journaling is a very practical, written form of that.
I can see how regular practice here would shift your perspective significantly. It's like building a positive foundation for your thoughts. What's next on our advanced journaling journey?
Next, we're going to talk about future self-journaling. This technique involves writing a letter or a series of entries from the perspective of your future, empowered self. Imagine you fully embodied the story you want to live. What would that future you say to your present self?
This sounds like a visualization exercise combined with journaling. So, I'd be writing to myself, but as the person I aspire to be.
Exactly. Pick a time frame, maybe 6 months, a year, or even 5 years from now. Then, write as that future version of you. What advice would they give? What lessons have they learned? What are they proud of? What challenges did they overcome to get there?
Wow. This could be incredibly motivating. It provides a glimpse into what's possible and offers reassurance that the struggles we face now are temporary. It connects directly to our goal of living our chosen story.
It absolutely does. It bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to be. When you're feeling stuck or discouraged, rereading these entries can reignite your focus and remind you of your ultimate vision. It's a powerful way to maintain momentum and stay connected to your goals. Think of it as having a pep talk from your future champion, delivered directly to your journal.
I love that image. It makes the abstract concept of a future self feel very real and accessible. So, we have gratitude journaling for appreciating the present, and future self journaling for envisioning and connecting with our aspirations. What's the third advanced technique?
Our third technique for deeper insights is dialogue journaling. This is where you engage in a conversation within your journal, often by writing as two different parts of yourself, or even as yourself and a representative of a limiting belief or a challenging emotion.
So, it's like an internal debate or exploration captured on paper.
Precisely. For example, you might write as present you, describing a current challenge, and then switch to inner critic, responding to that. Then you'd write back as present you, countering the criticism, or perhaps as wise self, offering a compassionate perspective.
This sounds like a fantastic way to externalize internal conflicts and gain clarity. Instead of just feeling overwhelmed by conflicting thoughts, you can see them laid out and work through them more objectively.
Indeed, it allows you to examine the roots of your limiting beliefs and understand the arguments they make. By actively responding, you can begin to challenge and dismantle those voices. It also provides a safe space to explore difficult emotions. You can talk to your fear, your sadness, or your anger, and in doing so, begin to understand their message and validate your own experience.
This technique seems especially useful for understanding those childhood patterns we discussed earlier in the series. You could potentially write a dialogue between your current self and your younger self, offering comfort and reassurance that perhaps wasn't given back then.
That's an excellent application, Lisa. It's about giving voice to all parts of your experience, even the ones you might normally suppress, and then integrating them into a more cohesive and empowered narrative. Remember how we talked about editing your identity in episode 11, moving beyond the victim mentality? Dialogue journaling is a practical tool for that.
So, to recap, we've explored gratitude journaling to appreciate the present and build a positive foundation, future self journaling to connect with our aspirations and maintain motivation, and dialogue journaling to explore internal conflicts and gain clarity. These all sound like powerful additions to our journaling practice.
They really are. The key with any of these advanced techniques is consistency. Make them a regular part of your routine, even if it's just for a few minutes each day. The deeper insights and transformation they offer are cumulative. You're not just journaling, you're actively curating your inner world and aligning it with the story you want to live.
It's about moving from passive observation to active participation in our own growth. These aren't just writing exercises, they are self-discovery tools that directly contribute to owning our story.
Absolutely. By consistently engaging with these techniques, you're not only uncovering deeper truths, but also strengthening your ability to write and live your most empowered narrative. You're becoming the author of your life in a much more profound way.
This has been incredibly insightful, Alex. I feel inspired to try these techniques myself and encourage our listeners to do the same. They really do offer a path to even deeper understanding.
Wonderful. Next time, we'll be moving into episode 18, where we'll discuss the long-term practice of narrative stewardship. We'll explore how to maintain this new narrative over time, ensuring it continues to guide and empower you.
That sounds like the perfect next step to solidify everything we've learned. Don't miss it.
Welcome back to Own Your Story. Today, we're focusing on the long-term practice of narrative stewardship.
Stewardship. That's an interesting word, Alex. It implies care, responsibility, and ongoing management. So, are we talking about this personal narrative we've been building as something we need to actively look after like a garden?
Exactly, Lisa. It's not a one-time fix, a single event where you rewrite your story and then you're done. True transformation comes from understanding that your personal narrative is a living, evolving entity. Narrative stewardship is the ongoing commitment to tending to that narrative, ensuring it's serving you and reflecting the person you are becoming.
So, we've spent a lot of time in previous episodes deconstructing old stories, identifying limiting beliefs, and crafting new, empowering narratives. We've learned about reframing, self-talk, and even editing our identity. It feels like we've reached a summit. But you're saying this is just the beginning of the journey?
Precisely. Think of it like building a magnificent house. You meticulously planned, laid the foundation, built the walls, and decorated the interiors. That was the intensive phase of construction. But a house needs constant upkeep, doesn't it? You need to paint, fix leaky faucets, maybe renovate a room as your needs change. Narrative stewardship is that ongoing upkeep and evolution for your inner world.
That makes so much sense. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of the initial rewrite and then coast. But if we're not actively engaging with our new story, old habits and beliefs can creep back in, like weeds in our garden.
You hit the nail on the head. One of the key aspects of narrative stewardship is mindful observation. We need to become the vigilant guardians of our own minds and the stories we tell ourselves. This means paying attention to our thoughts, our feelings, and our automatic reactions. Are they aligning with a narrative we've consciously chosen?
How do we do that in practice? It sounds a bit abstract. Are we supposed to be constantly analyzing ourselves? That could get exhausting.
It's not about constant, intense analysis, but gentle, consistent awareness. One way is to revisit your narrative log, a journal, regularly. Not just to write new entries, but to reread what you've already written. See how far you've come. Notice any recurring themes that might indicate old patterns resurfacing. Did you just have a moment where you defaulted to scarcity thinking? Or a moment where you immediately blamed yourself for something that wasn't entirely your fault?
Ah, so it's about catching those subtle moments. Like when an old, unhelpful thought pops into your head, and instead of just accepting it, you pause and think, hold on, this doesn't align with my new story. Is this really true?
Exactly. It's about that conscious pause. And then the active editing. When you catch yourself slipping into an old narrative, you don't just let it go unaddressed. You actively choose to reframe it. You consciously bring yourself back to your empowering beliefs and your chosen story. This is where consistent, positive self-talk becomes crucial, not as a one-off affirmation, but as a continuous internal dialogue.
So if I catch myself thinking, I'm not good enough to try this new project, the stewardship practice would be to consciously challenge that thought. That old story is trying to surface. You might say to yourself, but my new story is that I am capable, I am resourceful, and I am willing to learn. And even if I stumble, that's part of the growth.
Perfect illustration, Lisa. And this is where we move from just thinking about our story to actively living it. Narrative stewardship is about integrating your chosen narrative into your daily actions. If your narrative is about courage, what courageous actions can you take today, even small ones? If your narrative is about connection, How can you actively foster connection in your interactions?
It's about making choices that are in alignment with the person you want to be, the story you want to live. This means setting boundaries, pursuing opportunities that resonate with your new narrative, and even choosing who you spend your time with. If certain relationships constantly pull you back into old, detrimental stories, narrative stewardship might involve reevaluating those connections.
Absolutely. And we've touched on relationships and boundaries before, but it's worth reinforcing here. Our environment and the people we surround ourselves with significantly influence our narrative. Making conscious choices about these influences is a vital part of stewardship. Speaking of influences, remember when we discussed how our childhood patterns formed our initial narratives? Maintaining our new story means consciously addressing if any of those old roots are still trying to sprout.
That's a great callback, Alex. So, it's not just about what we do, but also about being mindful of what we consume, the information we take in, the media we engage with. Does it support our chosen narrative, or does it subtly reinforce old limitations?
Yes, it's a holistic approach. It's about conscious consumption and conscious creation. We are creating our reality through the lens of our narrative. Therefore, we must be deliberate about the lenses we use. This might involve curating your social media feeds, choosing books that inspire you, or even listening to podcasts like ours that support your growth.
This sounds like a lifelong commitment. Is there a risk of becoming too focused on this, too self critical, and ending up creating a new kind of pressure?
That's a valid concern. The goal of narrative stewardship is not to achieve perfection, but to cultivate a healthy, ongoing relationship with yourself and your story. It's about being responsive, not reactive. It's about progress, not a flawless state. If you notice yourself becoming overly self-critical, that's a sign for reflection and perhaps a gentle adjustment in your approach, not an indictment of the practice itself. Think of it as self-compassionate stewardship.
Self compassionate stewardship. I like that. So, to recap for our listeners, narrative stewardship is about 1. Mindful observation, noticing your thoughts and reactions. 2. Conscious editing, actively challenging old narratives and reinforcing your chosen story. 3. Behavior alignment, living your story through your actions and choices. And 4. Environmental awareness, curating influences that support your narrative.
That's a fantastic summary, Lisa. And remember, this isn't about rigidly sticking to a narrative that no longer serves you. As you grow and evolve, your narrative may need to evolve too. Stewardship allows for that organic growth. It's about being the wise caretaker of your inner world, ensuring it remains a source of strength, inspiration, and fulfillment. It's the ongoing work of empowering yourself, day by day, choice by choice.
It's empowering to know that we have this agency, this ability to continuously shape our experience and our identity. It's not just about writing the book, but about living it and being its dedicated keeper.
Exactly. And this ongoing practice is what truly solidifies the transformation. It's how you move from temporary change to lasting empowerment. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Today, we're diving into a powerful emotion that often blocks that journey, the fear of change and the unknown.
It's true, Alex. Even when we know our old story isn't serving us, the thought of stepping into something new can be terrifying. It's like standing at the edge of a well known, albeit uncomfortable, room and looking into a dark, unfamiliar space. You don't know what's in there.
Exactly. And this fear isn't irrational. It's a very primal response designed to keep us safe. Our brains are wired to seek familiarity because, historically, the unknown could mean danger. So, when we start rewriting our personal narratives, we're essentially challenging that ingrained safety mechanism.
So, How do we even begin to address this fear when it's so deeply ingrained?
Not at all. Ignoring fear rarely makes it go away. The first step is acknowledging it. What are the fears that come up when you think about truly changing your story? Is it the fear of failure in your new narrative? The fear of what others might think? Or perhaps the fear of success, which can bring its own set of anxieties?
That's a great question. I think for many people, it's the fear of what happens if the new story doesn't work out. For years, you've operated with a certain set of beliefs and expectations, even if they're negative. Stepping away from that feels like a leap of faith. What if you try to be more confident and you stumble? Will people think you were just faking it all along?
That's a very common one. The fear of the new narrative not sticking, or of reverting to old patterns and feeling even worse about it. This is where we can bring in something we've touched on before: the idea of progressive building and small, manageable steps. Instead of trying to flip a switch and become a completely different person overnight, think about making incremental changes.
So, if my old story was about being invisible and avoiding attention, and I want to write a new story about being more present and engaged, I don't have to volunteer to give a TED Talk tomorrow, right?
Precisely. You might start by making eye contact with a cashier or speaking up once in a casual conversation. These are small wins, and they build evidence for your new narrative. They show your brain, see, this new way of being is safe, and it can lead to positive outcomes. Each small success acts like a tiny beacon, illuminating the path forward and reducing the perceived darkness of the unknown.
That makes so much sense. It's about creating a series of small victories that chip away at the fear. It's like building a bridge one plank at a time, rather than trying to jump across a chasm.
Exactly. And another crucial element is understanding that the unknown doesn't always mean negative. The unknown is also the space of possibility, creativity, and potential. When we're stuck in a negative narrative, our vision becomes very limited. Rewriting our story is about expanding that vision, and the unknown is where that expansion happens.
But how do we change our perspective on the unknown itself? It often feels inherently threatening, doesn't it?
It does if we frame it that way. We can reframe the unknown as an adventure or as a blank canvas. Think about a child learning to ride a bike. Initially, they might be terrified of falling, but with each tentative pedal, with the support of a parent, they start to experience the freedom and joy of movement. The unknown of falling is replaced by the exciting possibility of riding.
That's a great analogy. And what about the fear of what others will think? If I'm shifting from being the quiet one to someone who speaks their mind, my friends and family might be surprised or even resistant.
This is where setting boundaries, which we've discussed previously, becomes incredibly important. You are not responsible for managing other people's reactions to your growth. Your primary responsibility is to yourself and your own authentic narrative. When you embark on rewriting your story, you're not doing it to please others or to fit a new mold dictated by them. You're doing it for your own well-being and fulfillment.
So it's about focusing on our own internal validation rather than external approval.
Precisely. And when we approach the unknown with a mindset of curiosity rather than dread, we're more likely to discover unexpected opportunities. For instance, if you've always seen yourself as someone who isn't good at public speaking and you decide to write a new narrative where you are capable and confident in sharing your ideas, the unknown is the experience of giving that first presentation.
And it might not be perfect, but it's a step.
It's a step. And perhaps during that presentation, you meet someone new who is inspired by what you said, or you get a new idea that wouldn't have surfaced if you'd stayed in your old, fear-bound narrative. The unknown, when approached with courage, can be a fertile ground for growth and connection.
It sounds like a continuous process of challenging those fear-based assumptions.
It absolutely is. And it's helpful to recognize that resistance to change is not a sign that you're doing it wrong. It's a natural part of the process. Think of it like a muscle. The more you exercise your courage to step into the unknown, the stronger that muscle becomes.
So, to recap, for those feeling the fear of change and the unknown as they rewrite their narratives, we're suggesting: First, acknowledge and identify those specific fears. Are they about failure, judgment, or something else? Second, embrace progressive building. Take small, manageable steps to create evidence for your new story rather than attempting drastic shifts. Third, consciously reframe the unknown from a threat to a space of possibility and adventure. Fourth, focus on internal validation and remember that you're not responsible for other people's reactions to your authentic growth. And finally, recognize that resistance is a natural part of the process, and exercising your courage builds strength.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. It's about shifting from a narrative of what if it goes wrong to what if it goes wonderfully right. The unknown is simply an unwritten chapter, and you hold the pen.
That's a powerful thought to end on. It really reframes the fear into an opportunity.
Indeed. And on that encouraging note, we'll wrap up this episode. Next time, we'll explore the empowering language we use and why words truly matter when shaping our reality.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back. Last time, we explored overcoming the fear of change. Now, let's talk about the power of language.
That's right, Alex. It's episode 20, and we're focusing on how the words we use shape our reality. Stories autobild, woord by woord.
Exactly. From the moment we wake up, language guides our world. Our thoughts, communication, and beliefs are all influenced by the words we use.
So, it's not just the big life events, but the everyday vocabulary that matters?
Precisely. Let's start with our inner dialogue. If your inner critic constantly says you're not good enough, you'll start believing it. These negative words create a story of inadequacy.
And that ties back to identifying limiting beliefs. How does language play a role there?
Remember when we pinpointed beliefs like, I'm not capable? These are often linked to phrases like, I'll never be able to do this. These are disempowering phrases.
So, the first step is noticing the disempowering words we use on ourselves.
Absolutely. Be a detective of your own mind. Once you identify recurring negative phrases, actively choose more empowering words. Instead of, I'll never be able to do this, try this is challenging, but I can learn, or I'm going to try my best.
That sounds simple, but it must take conscious effort to break old habits.
It does. It's a practice. Think of it like learning a new language. With repetition, it becomes natural. If you often use can't or won't, consciously replace them with I can try, I will explore, or I choose to.
So, word replacement is key. What else is part of empowering language?
Focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Our brains pick up on keywords. If you constantly say, I don't want to fail, your brain hears fail. It's more powerful to say, I want to succeed, or my goal is to achieve this.
That's a crucial distinction. It shifts focus from a negative outcome to the desired positive one. It's like adjusting a telescope to see what you want clearly.
Exactly. And this applies to how we describe ourselves and our experiences. Instead of saying, I'm so stressed, which feels overwhelming, you could say, I have a lot on my plate right now, and I'm managing it. This gives you a sense of control.
And reinforcing what we've discussed before, framing challenges wisely matters. Instead of, this was a disaster, we can say, this was a learning experience that taught me X, Y, and Z.
That's narrative therapy in action, using language to reframe past events. It's about owning your story. Is something a failure that defines you, or a setback you learn from? The language changes its impact.
And our language with others also shapes our narratives and relationships. How we talk about our support systems is important.
Absolutely. Complaining about others can create a narrative of being unsupported. But actively expressing appreciation and stating needs constructively can foster positive relationships. Instead of, you never listen, try, I'm feeling unheard right now. Can we talk about this?
That's a great way to shift from an accusatory statement to an I statement that expresses your feeling. It opens the door for discussion.
And when we talk about our goals, the language we use matters. I wish I could implies a lack of power, but I'm working towards or I'm planning to invest in action and possibility.
So, to recap, empowering language means being mindful of our inner dialogue, replacing disempowering phrases, focusing on desired outcomes, reframing challenges, and using constructive language with others.
A fantastic summary, Lisa. And it's not just the words, but the intention behind them. Are you using language to build yourself up and others, or to tear down? Words carry energy. Choosing words carefully infuses your narrative with positive energy.
It's like choosing paint colors for your life story. You wouldn't use dark, dull colors for a hopeful future, would you?
Exactly. This connects to storytelling itself. Authors choose every word to evoke feeling. We are authors of our lives, and we can choose our words.
It's like editing our own scripts.
Precisely. And this is a continuous process. It's okay if old habits resurface. The goal is progress, not perfection. When you notice yourself slipping, gently acknowledge it, and then choose a more empowering alternative.
A practical takeaway: spend time listening to your inner dialogue this week. Perhaps jot down recurring disempowering phrases.
A great starting point. Then, experiment with reframing. If you think, I'm terrible at public speaking, rewrite it as, I'm improving my public speaking skills with practice.
It's about being intentional. Our words shape our thoughts, thoughts shape feelings, feelings shape actions, and actions shape our reality. It's a powerful chain reaction.
As our series nears its end, this understanding of language becomes even more critical. The clearer and more empowered your language, the stronger your new narrative becomes, and the more likely you are to live it fully. It's the fuel for change.
When we use words like opportunity instead of problem, or I can instead of I can't, we're not just changing our vocabulary, we're changing our mindset and our potential.
It's about cultivating a positive linguistic environment within yourself. Think of your mind as a garden. If you plant weeds of doubt, that's what grows. But if you plant seeds of confidence and possibility, you nurture a thriving garden of empowerment.
That's a beautiful analogy, Alex. It reinforces that with consistent effort and mindful word choice, we can cultivate an empowering personal narrative.
Indeed, let's all commit to being more intentional with our language, both internally and externally. Let's choose words that build us up, inspire us, and empower us to fully own our stories.
Because ultimately, the story of your life is written with the words you choose. It's a profound responsibility and an incredible privilege.
Next episode, we'll be exploring the power of visualization to bring your new reality into focus.
Next episode: visualizing your new reality.
Welcome back to Own Your Story. We're on episode 21. Last time, we really dug into the power of our words. Today, we're going to take that further into visualization.
Visualization. It feels so magical, but also very real. How do we make those new stories feel solid, tangible?
Visualization is a tool to bridge your rewritten narrative and your lived experience. It's painting a vivid picture of your future in your mind, and then living as if it's your reality.
So, it's not just wishful thinking. It's actively engaging our minds to create a blueprint.
Precisely. Our minds often struggle to differentiate between what's vividly imagined and what's real. Visualization leverages this to direct our imagination towards our goals, reinforcing new beliefs.
If we can't see what the new story looks like, it might feel fuzzy. Visualization helps ground that new story.
Right? It's about creating a multi-sensory experience. What do you see, hear, smell, feel? The more detail, the more potent the visualization.
How do we start? Let's say someone has rewritten their narrative around confidence. What would that look like?
Find a quiet space, get comfortable, and take a few deep breaths. Imagine yourself in a situation where you felt insecure. Now, instead of that old feeling, what do you see yourself doing? Walking tall? Making eye contact?
I see myself walking in steadily, making eye contact, and approaching a group of people.
Excellent. What do you hear? Clear, confident laughter? Yourself speaking articulately? What do you feel? Ease, lightness, self-assurance, not anxiety.
I can feel a shift. It's a feeling. I feel less constricted, more open.
That's the power. Add smells, sounds, anything that grounds the scene. The more senses you engage, the more your brain accepts this as a plausible future. You are rehearsing your desired reality.
So, this isn't a one-time thing. This is a practice.
Absolutely. Practice regularly, perhaps daily, first thing in the morning or before bed. The more you immerse yourself, the more it imprints on your subconscious.
It builds on itself. The more we practice seeing ourselves as confident, the more natural that confidence becomes. It's like training a muscle.
You got it. Visualization helps you recognize opportunities you might otherwise miss. You become attuned to the steps and resources that can help you get there. Your perception shifts.
It's like fine-tuning a radio to pick up a specific station. We're tuning our minds to the frequency of our desired reality. Visualization is a proactive way to counter old, limiting patterns.
Imagine you believe you're not good enough. You then visualize yourself performing a task successfully, feeling capable. This mental rehearsal overwrites that old, negative belief. It provides evidence for your mind that the new, positive story is the truth.
So, we're actively participating in creating our new story by immersing ourselves in the feeling and the sensory experience of it. It's a brilliant way to solidify those narrative shifts.
It is. If your mind wanders, that's normal. Gently guide it back. The goal is consistent practice, not perfection. Over time, these imagined scenarios become more vivid and the emotions more profound.
So, to recap, visualization is a powerful technique to make our rewritten narratives feel real. It's about creating vivid, multisensory mental images of our desired future. By practicing, we reinforce new beliefs, rehearse desired behaviors, and tune our perception to opportunities. It's a way to actively co-create our future.
Precisely. You're not just imagining a better future. You're actively rehearsing what it feels like to live it. This internal rehearsal prepares your mind and actions to naturally align with your transformed narrative.
It's like planting a seed and nurturing it with sunlight and water, the sunlight and water being our focused visualization.
A perfect analogy. As we move towards the end of our series, these practices become crucial for integration. Visualizing yourself living your new story is a vital step in making that story your everyday reality.
This has been so helpful, Alex. I'm excited to focus on incorporating more visualization.
Wonderful. Next episode, we'll delve into building resilience through narrative reframing. Welcome back. Last time we covered visualizing your new reality. Today, building resilience through narrative reframing.
Resilience. It's not just about bouncing back, is it? It's about learning and growing when things get tough. Our personal stories must play a huge role in how resilient we are.
Exactly. Think of your personal narrative like the operating system for your life. When faced with a challenge, a setback, or even a failure, how you frame that event within your story dramatically impacts your ability to move forward. If your story is one of constant victimhood, where bad things just happen to you, your resilience will be quite low. You'll feel powerless.
like you're just a leaf being blown around by the wind, with no control over where you land.
Precisely. But if your narrative is one of an active participant, someone who faces challenges as opportunities for learning and growth, then your resilience skyrockets. This is where narrative reframing really shines. It's the art of looking at a difficult experience and finding a new, more empowering meaning within your personal story.
So, it's not about pretending the bad thing didn't happen or that it didn't hurt. It's about changing the meaning we assign to it.
You've got it. Let's take an example. Imagine someone who loses their job. In a victim-oriented narrative, this might be, I was unfairly fired. My boss hated me. My career is over. That's a story that breeds despair and inaction.
And it's hard to see a way out from there. It feels final.
It does. Now, let's reframe that same event through a resilience-building lens. The story becomes, losing this job was incredibly difficult, and I'm allowed to feel upset about it. However, this situation has also pushed me to reevaluate what I truly want in my career. It's an unexpected opportunity to learn new skills, perhaps explore a different industry, or even start that side project I've been dreaming about.
Wow, that's a completely different outlook. The core event is the same, job loss, but the interpretation completely shifts the emotional and behavioral response. The first one leads to feeling stuck, the second one opens up possibilities.
Absolutely. And this isn't just wishful thinking. It's about actively seeking out the lessons and the strengths that emerge from adversity. When we reframe, we're not denying the difficulty. We're choosing to emphasize the growth, the learning, and our own agency in navigating the situation. We can ask ourselves, what did I learn from this experience? What strengths did I discover within myself because of this challenge? How has this made me more compassionate, more determined, or wiser?
Those are such practical questions. It's like becoming a detective for the positive in a seemingly negative situation. And I can see how consistently practicing this would build up that resilience muscle, making it easier each time.
Exactly. It's a practice, not a one-time fix. One powerful way to do this is through journaling. When you face a setback, instead of just dwelling on the negative, use your journal to consciously reframe it. Write down the initial painful emotions, absolutely, but then dedicate space to explore the reframed narrative. What's the lesson? What's the hidden opportunity? What strength did you tap into?
So our narrative log can actually become a resilience building tool. It's not just for documenting what happened, but for actively reshaping how we understand what happened.
Precisely. And this reframing helps us develop what's called a growth mindset. This is fundamentally about believing that our abilities and intelligence can be developed through dedication and hard work. When you have a growth mindset, you see challenges not as threats, but as pathways to growth. This is intrinsically linked to narrative reframing.
Okay, so a growth mindset is like believing your personal story is still being written and you have a pen in your hand. A fixed mindset, on the other hand, is like believing the story is already finished and printed, with no edits allowed.
A perfect analogy, Lisa, and building resilience is about cultivating that growth mindset. When we reframe setbacks, we are reinforcing the idea that we are capable of learning, adapting, and overcoming. We are strengthening the belief that our story is dynamic and evolving.
This also ties into what we discussed about identifying our limiting beliefs. If a limiting belief is, I'm not good enough, a job loss might simply confirm that belief. But if we can reframe it, we can challenge that belief.
Yes, that's a fantastic connection, Lisa. We can see a setback not as proof of our inadequacy, but as a circumstance that requires us to tap into our resourcefulness, something we might not have realized we had until we were pushed. It's about shifting from an internal locus of blame, it's my fault, I'm inherently bad, to an external locus of circumstance combined with an internal locus of agency. This happened, but I can choose how to respond and grow from it.
So, narrative reframing essentially helps us move from a place of feeling like a passive victim of circumstances to an active agent in our own life story, even when those circumstances are difficult.
Exactly. And this conscious effort to reframe strengthens our inner fortitude. Think about it. If you've successfully reframed a few tough situations, the next one, while still challenging, won't feel as insurmountable. You'll have a repertoire of strategies and a deeper belief in your own capacity to handle it. That's the essence of resilience.
It's like practicing a skill. The more you practice reframing, the more natural and effective it becomes. And the less fear there is when new challenges arrive because you know you have the tools to navigate them.
And it's not about being positive all the time. That's not sustainable or realistic. It's about finding the most constructive and empowering interpretation of reality that allows you to learn, adapt, and move forward. It's about seeing a challenge not as a brick wall, but as a hurdle to leap over, or perhaps a detour that leads to an even more interesting path.
So, to recap, building resilience through narrative reframing means consciously choosing to interpret challenges and setbacks in ways that highlight learning, growth, and our own agency. It's about shifting from a story of victimhood to a story of capability and continuous development.
That's a great summary, Lisa. Remember, your story isn't fixed. It's a living, breathing narrative that you have the power to shape. By practicing narrative reframing, you are not just enduring life's difficulties. You are actively transforming them into opportunities to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient.
Making yourself an indomitable character in your own epic tale.
Precisely. Next time, we'll explore the power of the collective narrative, how the stories we share and are influenced by shape us, and how we can contribute to more empowering stories in our communities. Next episode, the collective narrative, how we influence each other. Welcome back. Last time we covered building resilience through narrative reframing. Now, let's tackle collective narratives.
It feels like we've been perfecting our own reflection, and now we're looking out the window at the world's reflection and how it affects us.
Exactly. Our personal stories are in dialogue with larger narratives, family, cultural, societal. These collective narratives shape our beliefs and opportunities.
It's like being in a giant conversation we don't always realize we're part of.
Consider the narrative around success. If that narrative doesn't match your desires, you might feel like you're failing.
Leading to those limiting beliefs, I'm not good enough, because success is defined by someone else's story.
And our individual stories can shape collective narratives. If a community's story is scarcity, individuals rewriting towards abundance plant seeds for a different story.
So it's about protecting ourselves and actively contributing to positive ones? How do we identify these big, diffuse collective narratives?
Listen, pay attention to the stories told repeatedly in media, work, or family. What themes emerge? For example, how are certain groups consistently framed? That's the collective narrative.
And once we identify them, do we just stand against them?
You choose how to engage. Disengage from narratives that don't serve you. Challenge them internally. Most importantly, consciously co-create and reinforce narratives aligned with your values.
So it's like curating our information diet, but on a psychological level. We decide which stories to give energy to and help build.
A brilliant analogy. If a collective narrative is a river, you can navigate it, perhaps diverting a stream. Remember unique outcomes from narrative therapy? These reveal alternative collective narratives.
Those moments where the problem story wasn't the full picture. We're looking for collective versions of those.
Precisely. And we can amplify them, share them, and connect with others who see these possibilities. When individuals embody a different narrative, that energy can influence the larger story.
It reminds me of social movements, starting with individuals with different narratives who find each other and gain momentum.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be grand. In your family or community, if the story is criticism, You could be the one highlighting strengths. You initiate a small, positive shift.
What are some practical ways to participate in this positive narrative co-creation?
Be mindful of your language. Words carry power. If a collective narrative is fear-based, use language of hope and resilience. Seek and support media, art, and individuals telling uplifting stories.
And actively share those stories? If I read a book that humanizes a stereotyped group, sharing it can plant a seed.
Exactly. Be a conscious participant, not a passive consumer. Think of the building blocks exercise from episode 9. What positive blocks do we want to see more of? Then embody and share them.
This brings it all together. Our personal story isn't isolated. By refining our narrative, we understand and influence the larger stories shaping our world.
When we recognize our personal narrative's connection to the collective, we gain agency. We become authors, co-creating more just and empowering narratives.
So, to recap, our personal stories interact with collective narratives. We can choose how to engage and actively contribute to positive ones. This involves mindful language, supporting good stories, and being conscious participants.
You've summed it up beautifully. Understanding the collective narrative is crucial for owning your story and contributing to a hopeful future. Next episode, we'll be creating your personal narrative manifesto. Welcome back. Last time, we explored collective narratives. Now, creating your personal narrative manifesto.
A personal narrative manifesto. That sounds like a grand statement, Alex. What exactly is it, and how do we create one?
Think of your personal narrative manifesto as your personal declaration of who you are, what you stand for, and the story you are actively choosing to live. It's a distillation of everything we've discussed: your core values, your strengths, your empowering beliefs, and the principles that will guide you as you continue to live your chosen narrative. It's the North Star for your story.
So, it's not just a goal, but a set of guiding principles derived from all the work we've done in uncovering and rewriting our limiting stories. It's like a personal constitution for your life.
Exactly, Lisa. It's a powerful tool for commitment. Throughout this series, we've unwound old narratives, identified limiting beliefs, and learned to reframe our experiences. We've practiced self-talk, learned to harness our strengths, and set boundaries in relationships. Your manifesto is where you bring all of that together. It's a living document that reinforces your agency.
When you say living document, does that mean it's something we revisit and update?
Absolutely. Life is a journey, and our stories evolve. Your manifesto should be a reflection of your growth. We'll talk more about that towards the end, but for now, let's focus on its creation. To start, I want you to think back to the very beginning of this series, when we first talked about owning your story. What was that initial feeling? Was it a sense of being stuck, or perhaps a yearning for something more?
For me, it was that feeling of being on autopilot, living a story that someone else seemed to have written for me, or that I'd unconsciously adopted. There was a sense of unease, a knowing that things could be different, but not knowing how to make that shift.
That's a common starting point. Now, reflect on everything you've learned since then. What are the core values that emerged as most important to you? We've talked about integrity, courage, kindness, creativity, resilience. What truly resonates with your deepest self? Take a moment, maybe even grab a notebook and jot down your top 3 to 5 core values. These will be cornerstones of your manifesto.
So, for example, if I identified curiosity as a core value, how would that translate into a statement in my manifesto?
Great question. You might phrase it as, I commit to living with unwavering curiosity, always seeking to understand, to learn, and to explore new perspectives. See how that's an active commitment based on a value? It's not just I value curiosity, but I commit to living with curiosity.
I see. It's about the action and the intention behind the value.
Precisely. Now, let's move on to your strengths. Remember when we discussed how often we overlook our own capabilities? Your manifesto should acknowledge and celebrate these strengths. Think about what you're naturally good at, what energizes you, and where you've demonstrated competence. Are you a great listener? A problem solver? A creative thinker? A compassionate friend?
I remember feeling a bit hesitant to even name my strengths at first. It felt like bragging. But looking back, recognizing those strengths has been so empowering.
And that's the key. Your manifesto is a space for you to be an advocate for yourself. So perhaps a strength statement could be, I embrace my innate ability to connect with others, using my empathy to build understanding and foster strong relationships. We're not just listing strengths, we're declaring how we intend to use them. This is foundational to living your new story.
This is really coming together. So, values and strengths are two key pillars. What else goes into this manifesto?
Next, let's address empowering beliefs. These are the core truths you've adopted that support your growth and well-being. They're the direct opposites of your old limiting beliefs. Instead of, I'm not good enough, an empowering belief might be, I am inherently worthy and capable. Instead of, I always fail, it could be, I learn from every experience and setbacks are opportunities for growth.
This is where the reframing work really solidifies. It's about taking those conscious shifts in perspective and making them part of your foundational self-understanding.
Exactly. Your manifesto should capture these empowering beliefs in clear, declarative statements. For instance, I believe in my capacity for resilience. Challenges are temporary, and my inner strength will always see me through. Or, every decision I make from this point forward is an opportunity for growth and aligned with my highest intentions. These aren't just thoughts, they're declarations of your chosen reality.
So, we're building this with our core values, our strengths, and our new empowering beliefs. This feels like a really solid framework.
It is. And now, we add the principles of action. These are the practical commitments you're making to yourself. How will you consistently show up in alignment with your values, strengths, and beliefs? This could relate to self-care, how you communicate, how you approach challenges, or how you nurture your relationships. Think about the how.
This is where the daily practice comes in, isn't it? Like remembering episode 16, living your chosen story, integration into daily life.
Precisely. For example, a principle of action might be, I commit to mindful communication, choosing my words with care and speaking my truth with kindness and clarity. Or, I will prioritize my well-being, ensuring I make time for activities that recharge and nourish my spirit. These are actionable commitments. They ground your manifesto in tangible behavior.
So, to recap, we're identifying our core values, acknowledging and planning to utilize our strengths, solidifying our empowering beliefs, and then establishing principles of action to guide our daily lives.
That's a perfect summary. Now, the final and perhaps most crucial element of your manifesto is your overarching narrative statement. This is the concise, powerful sentence or two that encapsulates the essence of the story you are living. It's your personal mission statement, your life's theme song, if you will.
This is where it all clicks, isn't it? The culmination of everything.
It is. Think about the person you are becoming, the impact you want to have, and the overarching message of your life. For some, it might be, I am a courageous creator, weaving a life of passion, purpose, and positive impact. For others, I live with unwavering integrity and deep compassion, embracing every moment as an opportunity for learning and connection. This is your ultimate declaration.
This is so powerful, Alex. It's not just about writing down words. It's about making a profound commitment to yourself and to the life you want to live. It's a beacon.
Indeed, once you've drafted your manifesto, I encourage you to keep it somewhere visible. Read it daily. Let it guide your decisions, especially when you feel yourself slipping back into old patterns. It's your anchor, your reminder of who you are and the story you are authoring.
And remembering the language of empowerment, words matter. The specific wording we choose for our manifesto will be incredibly important.
Absolutely. Be intentional with your language. Use words that uplift and affirm. Your manifesto is a testament to your journey from victim to author, as we'll explore next time.
So, to create your personal narrative manifesto, you'll lay the foundation with your core values, celebrate your unique strengths, anchor yourself with empowering beliefs, establish clear principles of action, and finally, articulate your overarching narrative statement. It's a comprehensive guide for living your most authentic story.
That's right. This manifesto is your personal roadmap, your guiding star, and a powerful affirmation of your agency. It's the culmination of our work together. Keep it close, revisit it often, and allow it to inspire every step of your journey ahead.
Thank you, Alex. This is a truly empowering exercise and a fantastic way to consolidate everything we've learned. I can't wait for our final episode.
Me neither, Lisa. Next episode, we'll be discussing From Victim to Author, Living Your Ultimate Narrative. Welcome back to Own Your Story. We've reached episode 25 of our series. Today, we're focusing on transforming from a victim of your circumstances to the true author of your ultimate narrative.
It feels like such a huge leap, doesn't it? Going from feeling like things just happen to you to actively creating what happens for you. It's the culmination of everything we've discussed.
Exactly, Lisa. We've spent this entire series deconstructing the old stories that no longer serve us, identifying those limiting beliefs, and learning the principles of narrative therapy. We've practiced journaling, reframing failure, and consciously choosing empowering self-talk. Now it's about stepping into that power fully. Being a victim means you see yourself as passive, at the mercy of external forces. You believe your story is written for you by others or by fate.
And being an author means you see yourself as the active creator of your story. You understand that while external events happen, your interpretation and your response are what shape the narrative of your life. It's about taking ownership of your experiences, past, present, and future.
Precisely. Think back to when we talked about childhood patterns. Many of us develop certain narratives based on our early experiences, maybe feeling not good enough or that the world is a harsh place. These became our default settings, our victim stories. Recognizing how those stories made us feel smaller, less capable, was a key step.
And then we began inserting new, empowering beliefs and reframing those past experiences. It was the start of shifting from this happened to me to I learned from this and now I can.
This shift from victim to author is about embracing that I can mindset. It's about recognizing that even when things are difficult, and they will be, as we discussed regarding challenges and setbacks, you have the power to decide how that difficulty fits into your larger story. Is it an insurmountable obstacle, or is it a chapter that builds your resilience and character?
It really circles back to the language we use, doesn't it? The words we choose, both internally and externally, drastically shape our perception of ourselves and our reality. If we constantly describe ourselves as victims, as unlucky, as powerless, that's the story we create.
Absolutely. And when you truly embody the role of the author, you become intentional about your language. You actively choose to narrate your life with courage, with possibility, and with purpose. This isn't about denying reality or pretending everything is perfect. It's about framing reality in a way that empowers you to move forward. Visualization becomes a crucial tool here. You visualize the life you want to author, the kind of person you want to be in that story.
So, when we talk about living your ultimate narrative, what does that actually look like day to day? It's more than just having a positive mindset, right?
It is. Living your ultimate narrative means actively aligning your daily actions with the story you want to tell. If your narrative is one of growth and learning, you seek out opportunities to learn. If it's about connection, you invest time and energy into your relationships. It's about making choices that don't contradict the author you aspire to be. This is the practical application of integrating your chosen story into daily life.
That approach felt so empowering because it made the grand narrative feel achievable. By breaking it down into manageable daily actions, the idea of being the author became less abstract. It felt like we were literally writing our story, one sentence, one paragraph, one day at a time.
And building resilience through narrative reframing is key here. As authors of our story, we don't shy away from the difficult chapters. We understand they contribute to the richness and depth of our narrative. When setbacks occur, we can reframe them not as proof of our victimhood, but as plot twists that make our eventual triumph even more compelling.
I love that perspective. It transforms challenges from something to be feared into something that adds substance to our unique story. It's about seeing your life not as a series of random events, but as a cohesive tale where these challenges shape your character arc.
And what about our relationships? We discussed influencing other stories and how they influence ours. Understanding the interconnectedness of our narratives helps us see that we're not just writing our own story in isolation.
That's a really important point. Our narratives are interconnected. By consciously authoring our own positive, empowering stories, we can contribute to a more positive collective narrative. It's a ripple effect.
Exactly. Your personal manifesto serves as your compass. It's the declaration of your authorship, a reminder of the core values and beliefs that guide your narrative. When you feel doubt creeping in, when the old victim stories try to resurface, you can return to that manifesto.
So, living your ultimate narrative is an active, ongoing practice. It's not a one-time fix. It requires continuous attention, like a dedicated author refining their work. It's about consistently choosing to be the protagonist of your own life.
Indeed, it's about understanding that the power to create your reality lies within your narrative. You are not a passenger. You are the driver, the navigator, and the storyteller. The victim narrative is one of helplessness and external control. The author narrative is one of agency, possibility, and intentional creation.
It's a profound shift in perspective and one that has the potential to transform every aspect of our lives, from how we handle adversity to how we celebrate our successes.
And it's a journey, not a destination. There will be days when the author's pen falters and the victim's voice whispers. That's where ongoing narrative stewardship comes in. It's the ongoing commitment to tending to your story, editing it with care, and ensuring it continues to move in a direction that honors your highest self.
So, as we wrap up this incredible series, the message is clear. You have the power to rewrite your story. You have the tools. You have the capacity to move from feeling like a victim to being the celebrated author of your most fulfilling, meaningful, and ultimate narrative.
This has been an incredibly rewarding journey, and I hope you found as much value in it as I have. Remember, the end of this series is just the beginning of you living your ultimate narrative. Keep writing, keep evolving, and keep owning your story.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. We've covered so much, from unearthing old beliefs to actively crafting new, empowering narratives. The core message has always been about your agency, your power, and your ability to shape your life through the stories you tell yourself and live by.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Own Your Story. This is episode 26, our final episode.
It really is, Alex. We've reached the conclusion of our journey together.
Precisely. Over these past episodes, we've delved deep. We started with the fundamental power of our personal narrative, understanding that the stories we tell ourselves shape our reality. Remember that initial spark, Lisa? The idea that we aren't just passive characters, but active authors of our own lives?
Absolutely. And then we spent time unearthing those current stories, digging into our childhood patterns, or identifying those deeply ingrained limiting beliefs. That was a crucial step.
It was. But without understanding the script we're currently following, we can't very well rewrite it. This is where we introduced the core principles of narrative therapy. The idea that our identities are not fixed, but are shaped by the stories we inherit and create. We talked about how we can separate ourselves from our problems, seeing them as external influences rather than inherent flaws.
And I particularly remember how we learned to reframe failure, not as an end, but as a redirection, a lesson learned. That really resonated with me. It shifted my perspective on setbacks entirely, from something to fear to an opportunity for growth.
That's exactly what we aimed for. Then, we introduced the practical tool of journaling your narrative log, a place to actively record, reflect, and begin the process of deconstruction. Remember the shrinking exercise we discussed? Taking those overwhelming problems and stories and making them smaller, more manageable, so we could truly see them for what they were.
Oh, yes, shrinking them down made them so much less powerful. And then the exciting part began, crafting our new narratives. We learned about the building blocks, which gave us the foundational elements for creating empowering stories, and then focused on the power of positive self-talk, those daily affirmations and inner dialogues that reinforce our new direction.
We then discussed editing our identity, moving beyond the victim mentality that so many of us can fall into. We encouraged listeners to focus on their strengths and values, truly understanding what makes them unique and powerful. These are the core elements of a strong, resilient narrative.
And how our relationships play into this. We talked about understanding the influences of others on our story and setting healthy boundaries. Because while we are the primary authors, the world around us certainly impacts the plot.
Indeed, we also acknowledged that rewriting your story isn't always a smooth ride. We addressed the inevitable challenges and setbacks we face during this transformative process. But crucially, we learned to celebrate our wins, no matter how small, to reinforce the positive changes we were making.
That celebration piece is so important for momentum. Then, we talked about really living our chosen story, integrating these new narratives into our daily lives. It's not just about thinking differently, it's about acting differently.
We then went deeper with advanced journaling techniques and discussed narrative stewardship, the long-term practice of tending to your story, of being its conscious caretaker. This isn't a one-time fix. It's an ongoing, evolving process.
And to keep that process moving, we tackled the fear of change and the unknown, that often present anxiety when we step out of our comfort zones, even when those zones are limiting. We emphasized that the fear is natural, but not insurmountable.
Which leads us perfectly into the language of empowerment. Understanding how the words we choose, both internally and externally, have immense power to shape our reality. We aren't just speaking words, we're crafting our world with them.
I loved the part on visualizing our new reality, painting a clear, vivid picture of that future self and that future life we're building. It's like creating a blueprint for our dreams. And we focused on building resilience through narrative reframing, turning those inevitable knocks and bumps into opportunities.
That's absolutely right. We saw how acknowledging our interconnectedness, our collective narrative, showed us that our individual stories also contribute to a larger tapestry. And we learned how to create our personal narrative manifesto, a guiding document for our lives.
And then we truly embodied the transformation from victim to author, living our ultimate narrative. It was about embracing that powerful internal shift that allows us to take control.
It's been an incredible journey, Lisa, from understanding the foundational power of narrative to actively deconstructing old stories and then meticulously crafting new, empowering ones. We've equipped ourselves with tools like journaling, reframing failure, and mastering our inner dialogue.
We've learned to integrate our values, navigate relationships, and build resilience. We've faced fears and embraced change, all by becoming conscious stewards of our own life stories. It's a profound shift, isn't it? Seeing yourself not as a recipient of circumstances, but as the creative force behind your lived experience.
It truly is. And as we conclude this series, it's important to remember that this is not an endpoint, but a launching pad. The principles we've explored are living tools. Continue to write in your narrative log. Continue to challenge limiting beliefs as they arise. Continue to choose empowering language.
And remember to celebrate your progress. Every small step forward, every moment you choose to author your story consciously, is a victory worth acknowledging. The journey of narrative stewardship is ongoing, and that allows for continuous growth and self-discovery.
So, as we sign off from Own Your Story, my hope for each of you is that you step forward with confidence, carrying the power of your rewritten narrative. You are the author of your life. Write a magnificent story.
Indeed. Embrace the power within you to shape your future, one word, one thought, one page at a time. We are so grateful to have shared this journey with you.
Thanks for listening to the series.